facing back to front, over my shoulder at the sun. And it's an open door, and off my line of sight once more. And out of learn, out of learn, it'll all be fine this time. Out of learn, out of learn, 'cause you always seem so kind. Out of learn, it'll all be fine this time. Out of learn, out of learn.
Now you wait up and all I live. Now you wait anymore. You know I love. You know I love. Now you wait up and all I live. Now you wait anymore. You know I love. You know I
I turn full circle round and round. So will you help me down? Come grab my hand for solid ground. And out of learn, it'll all be fine this time. Out of learn, 'cause you always seem so kind. Out of learn, it'll all be fine this time. Out of learn,
Now you wait up and all I live. Now you wait anymore. You know I love. You know I love. Now you wait up and all I live. Now you wait anymore. You know I love. You know I
help me out, don't let me down. I could learn from you. I could learn from you. Help me out, don't let me down. I could learn from you. I could learn from you. Help me out, don't let me down. I could learn from you. I could learn from you.
And the green flag drops and we are underway. Good evening, boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen, and happy Star Wars Day to all of you, whether you're a fan or whether you just know it because everyone else talks about it. Good evening and welcome to the Positive Perception YouTube channel for round number 4 of this Positive Perception GT Championship. We're into season number 7, of course, and we're here at the Misano circuit in Italy. Rather appropriately appears on the screen as I'm talking about it, affectionately referred to after the late Marco Simoncelli. We are here for a double header this evening, 2 30-minute rounds for you to kick off the back end of this season here with the Positive Perception community, and I'm delighted to be joined once again. See, he wasn't with us last time and struggled without him, but delighted to be rejoined by Mr. Honnibal alongside me. Chris, good evening to you, sir. How are things? How was your break the last couple of weeks?
Very good, very good. And you know, I'm a massive Star Wars fan, and I've already forgotten until you mentioned May the 4th be with you, if you will. You know, but I'm excited to be back. You know, missing out on some of these commentaries is a bummer, but life throws things at you and you just got to take care of it, I guess. You know how it goes.
Absolutely, yeah. We know how it goes. That's why we do this. Just nice bit of fun on the side, isn't it? So it's good to be able to go and do some other bits here and there. But luckily,
there you go.
We managed to just about last without you. We struggled, but we made it through. So it was all good.
I won't lie. I was hoping everything fell apart. No, just kidding.
You
need me, guys.
I will be honest. So for those of you who don't know, Chris and I normally get on about 15-20 minutes before, don't we? We have a little kind of a bit of a confab, bit of a chat, bit of a catch up, etc., etc. And I used that time very wisely to set up everything that I need ahead of the stream. When you weren't there, I forgot so much that I needed to do.
Well, there is me going, hey, do you have the pit wall link? Hey, do you have the stream link? Hey, do you have this going on? So it kind of reminds you because I have to get all that stuff from you.
Yeah, this is it. Nothing if not organised, shall we say. Good evening to Mr. Neutlings in the chat. Not racing this evening because I believe he's gone and got his new car. It's very exciting. It's probably not actually as exciting as we're led to believe, because from experience, you may know this, Chris, but Mark never tends to buy the most interesting of cars. He tends to buy the most functional and practical of cars, which is never as fun, but it's a new car, isn't it? So
when you can drive your snazzy fast cars in the sim racing world, then why do you got to pay that extra money to drive one in the real world, right? Just get from point A to point B.
Do you know,
I'm kind of the same.
I couldn't have put it better myself. That's a very, very good point indeed. I like that. Very, very apt. Shall we, before we get into everything, obviously the guys are in the briefing at the moment, so we'll see what's going on with them in a few minutes' time. But should we talk through the standings? Because obviously, like I say, you weren't here last week. There's been a lot of change, I shall add, with the standings as well. Of course, if you cast our minds back to the last round, it was the day after, so literally within 24 hours of the new V1.9 patch going out from Kunos for the new tyre model, physics model, etc. into ACC, and of course that meant new cars as well. So what you will see, and this might confuse you as well as it still confuses me, Chris, is that the standings look a little bit different because there are some people with minus points and there are some people who you might expect to be at the top who aren't, because we do operate a 50-point deduction on points if you do change your car midway through, hopefully to kind of prevent stuff like this happening, because obviously, sure, you and I know, Chris, as well as everyone else does, the new cars are normally quicker, aren't they? Like, we can't really hide away from it.
It's the very frequent video game struggle where new content is released. That content is a little bit more, we'll say, efficient than the rest of the content that has already gotten its balance patches and its balance of power nerfs and things like that. So a lot of the time, those new things just come out and they are almost unbalanced significantly. So the urge to change to that new shiny car is going to be, you know, very, very enticing for all these drivers.
Yeah, absolutely. It's one of them. So that's why we put that in place. So when you look at these standings, spoiler alert, they look a little bit strange. We'll start with the AM standings. Now, this is one that actually isn't too different to what you'd normally expect, although there have been some changes going around there. So Robert Besson still leads the way. He's led the way since the start of the season, in fairness, and he's been Mr. Consistent and Mr. Performance because he's done such a good job in terms of not only getting results, getting consistently really solid results. So he leads the way from a 20-point gap back to Nadir Balozzo in second position. Then there's a further 14 points back to Lisa Louise Keener. Again, has been showing some serious consistency. I've obviously worked with Lisa, on other stuff. She's a positive perception driver, of course, and the improvements she's made in terms of consistency over the last sort of 6 months or so have been mad. It's so good, and that really kind of does display that in there as well, being in the top 3. Sandro Bosch sitting there on 77 points, and this is where it starts to get a little bit messy because people have changed cars. Sebastian Binnell on 43 points. Nick Karayanis, he was further up. He would have been on 83 points, but of course changed his car from the Aston Martin to the Ferrari. Might not have been the Aston, but could be mistaken. And then Michael de Groot, the last of the point scorers in the AM class. Hopefully we'll see one of Colin Dunn, Konstantinos Hatzi Konstantinou and Marcus Richardson. Potentially they might be in the service tonight and they'll get a chance to change that. I feel like, Chris, I've just said hit that guy's name because I feel like I wanted to prove the point that I could pronounce it.
I was waiting until you got to that because I was like, I don't have any clue.
He calls himself Costa in the Discord, which is probably the right thing to do.
Nice
Silver standings, a little bit closer on this one, as you can see. Silver's actually the most frequently partaken standing group, I think, class we have in the Positive Protection League, I believe. So Thomas van der Stroys is leading the way in this one. Now, I'm pretty sure none of these guys have changed cars. There may be one, but I'm not 100% sure. So Thomas van der Stroys leads the way on 127 points. It's Gianluca De Luca 4 points behind, and then a further 5 points back to Mark Cooper on 118. So very close between the top 3 cars. A little bit of a gap there, 9 points back to Andrea De Perna, 4 points back to Alessandro Di Candio, and then a bit of a gap again back to James Jackson, Mike Richards, and Steve Derrick, all within 3 points of each other. And then Ivo van Collenberg. And I have just noticed I've done the horrible, most worst thing I could have possibly done. Mark Neuteling's 10th in the standings, but that should be Mark with a C and not Mark with a K. I'm sorry. Especially because he's watching as well.
And he's already mentioned it.
Yeah, I thought he might have done. I'm not looking, I daren't. I'm too scared. And pro standings, these are where they've changed slightly as well. They've also changed because we lost the bit where it says pro standings at the top of the screen. That's not ideal. But Marcus Hagel leads to on that one, primarily because he has changed his car. To be honest, it would be very close at the top had that not been the case. Now, Dodds, Mr. Consistent, he sits there in P2. He's not had a win yet, but he has been very solid in terms of getting those high scoring results through so far this season. Martin Thorpe, one of those, had a good showing at Donington Park a couple of weeks ago. Lost the win late in the race, but still managed to get a good solid result there. He's on 121 points. Ash Coupland, he is in 4th at the moment. He will drop back because he has also changed his car. He's moved over to the new Ferrari 296, which of course will promote Carlo Durazio, Mark Roddenberry, and Dario Zappa, and Carlos Jurgulis up a position each. So they're in 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th at the moment. They'll all jump up a spot. And then Miles Dixon and Aurelian Cross are rounding out the top 10. It does make it difficult, doesn't it, Chris? I mean, I suppose one of the things we have to consider with anything like this is the fact that it's because obviously there's post-race stewarding and all of these rounds, stuff like that. You can't really read too much into the standings on a stream, can you? But it makes it that little bit more difficult when people do chop and change because you don't know how things are going to end out.
Yeah, so if you're not watching every single stream and following every single driver, you might not really know all of the names that are in there. So you're not really sure if your favorite driver is, or not your favorite driver, but someone who's taken the deduction in points. They could have taken that knowing full well that they'll be perfectly fine throughout the season. Because if they're one of the alien drivers, as we call them, in the sim racing world, then it'd be pretty easy to get back up there. But it does make for a little bit of an interesting season and kind of gives that possibility of that Cinderella story. So if you stick on your car and just hold out and just hope that something kind of freaky happens on the track, you could end up taking that, top 3 spot.
Absolutely. Certainly something to keep an eye out for. Now, we're just waiting for the last minute of the free practice session to run through. I think the guys have finished the briefing and now we're just waiting for them to start the qualifying session. 32 in the server I can see. Niall Dodd's not one of them. I'm just trying to pick up on some of those that we'd expect to see potentially and they're not in there at the moment. But what I want to ask you, Chris, is obviously, like I say, we've had the new cars that have come in. They've been in for 2 and a bit weeks now. Have you had a chance to use any of them? Have you tried out any of the new content, or have you not really had the chance to get around it yet?
Unfortunately, I have not had the chance to try any new content in ACC. I'm more of an iRacing driver because I've dumped so much darn money into the service. I always feel like I need to race iRacing when I'm online. So most of my time is spent there. But from the stuff that I've heard from the sim racing team for Grid Finder and just the general Twitter, I guess, noise, if you will, it seems like this update is absolutely spot on and amazing for changing the way ACC behaves. So the old way of doing setups a lot of the time was just min-max things. So you just maximize the meter on one thing, minimize the meter on another thing, and you're kind of generally in a good situation in this game. But now a lot of tinkering and a lot of actual paying attention to what's happening to the car on the track, and that, in my opinion, makes for better racing.
You're right, it's definitely never a bad thing. I think there is also, I mean, you're absolutely right, like there was always the, what was it, it was the toe in the camber, wasn't it, in the 1.8 patch, where you could basically, you could either max or min them out and you'd largely get a car that you could handle. Now, like I say, I've not actually driven a single lap on ACC since the patch has come out, so I'm same as you. Like, I haven't tried the new physics, but from what I've seen, what I've read, what I've been told, you're right. I think all of the feedback on it and the general kind of consensus is an overwhelming positive, which is, I suppose, when you're the likes of Aris and the guys over at Kunos who handle this sort of things, I suppose it's quite a nice feeling, isn't it? Because you're looking at it going, cool. Yeah, we've done a good job.
Yeah.
Nice.
I'm sure Aris is ecstatic, and we actually did get to talk to him. I didn't personally, but Tom got to talk to him for the Sim Sundays podcast over at, what was that latest event? The SRO event that was just broadcast recently.
Nice.
So there's some little bit of insider information in there. He definitely has a grin on his face when it comes to the upgrades in the game that are coming out. It's exciting, you know.
Yeah.
And it makes for better racing, because now you're not just saying, okay, well, maximize this, minimize that, and ta-da, I have the same car as the guy behind me. Now it's really coming down to those little things that do make you unique compared to that person that's following you, the person you're following. Now it just brings out the driver's skill a little bit more. Yeah,
100%. I think it's a big differential, isn't it? Like when you've got something that is so much more true to form. Yes, it's going to benefit those. Maybe it will benefit those who've got that maybe real life exposure to it. But I suppose that's what you buy in race on a game on a simulation. Let's call it its real name. Like you use this for. Like you want it to be as true to driving the real life thing as you can. And the closer they get to that, ultimately the better it's going to be. So I'm all for it. I just need to actually give it a go at some point.
Yeah, you know, if you like a real pointy car, and let's say the BMW like we're looking at now just happens to be one of those ones where you just max out a value, but if you don't max it out, you're like at a disadvantage. Now, with the new patch, if you need to change something because of your driving style, you're not handicapping yourself anymore. It actually matters now, so that you can fix the car in a way that's going to suit your actual driving style and just overall make you better on the track.
100%. It's all good to watch and makes it more interesting for us as well. And of course, adding tyre wear into that only adds to the event, I feel like. But let's have
the one that's scary to me.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, not very good on my tyres, shall we say? But let's have a look around a lap of this Misano circuit. We're on board with championship leader in the pro class, Marcus Hagel, coming through the first couple of corners. Variante del Parco. Nice tight corners there. Very important to get the momentum, Chris, isn't it? It feels like one of those tracks where it flows really nicely. Like I love driving this track. Like once you get your head around it, because it is incredibly flat, so quite difficult to spot your braking points and sometimes on some areas. But once you get used to it, it's a really fun track to drive. Do you agree?
I do agree. One thing that's really weird about Misano to me is that the curbs are small, so you can basically just roll right over them, almost like they don't exist, as opposed to some other tracks where if you hit the curbs, your car is just unbalanced and flying all over the road. So a lot of the corners in this one, you're going to see them just eating all of those curbs and just going over them like they almost don't even exist. So you spend a lot of time in those little runoff areas, whether they be green or the red runoffs. You're going to see a lot of drivers barely keeping those two tires on the track.
It's almost the anti-Zolder, you might call it. The one I'm thinking of, like as a polar opposite. Zolder is the one that comes to mind.
Yeah, those curbs are. See, I have the problem where I see a curb and I'm like, don't hit that thing because that's going to throw your car off. So this track takes me a long time to like program my brain to just go ahead and roll over them and pretend like they're not even there. It's just this weird. Like mental thing where you're like, oh, I'm not supposed to hit those because I don't want to unbalance the car, but in this one, just straight over them and you're fine.
Yeah, yeet the curbs. as they say. But Marcus Egel crosses the line. It's 1:34.3, so goes fastest of all so far. Ivo van Kollenberg comes in just under a second behind that. Timo van der Stroys comes in between them as well, so splits those two. Thomas van der Stroy, sorry, I don't know why it's got Tio put in there. We were obviously looking at the practice session work with Chris, and we're keeping an eye on the times. Very, very close, as is proven the point by Dario Zappa going within 2/10 within the first couple of minutes of qualifying. So it's going to be a really interesting one. Of course, the grid for this qualifying session, of course, sets the grid for both sprint races tonight. So makes that qualifying session even more important when it's fitting in for both races, doesn't it?
It does. The interesting part, and I think we talked about this at the last race because it was a 60-minuter that we were in. And the interesting part about these two races instead of the single is how important it is for qualifying, and then it also relieves stress of the drivers, because you have that first race that if you totally bin it and you totally push too hard and you I don't know, let's say you just get out of the points because you were trying too hard up in the top 3, just as an example, you have another race. So it's not like all is lost and you're kind of like, well, okay, I got to spend the next 60 minutes struggling through the field. You're like, okay, well, I have another start. I can change my strategy a little bit. I can be a little bit gentler and still pick up some really solid points this weekend.
Absolutely. And I think another added element, as we see Karol Gillis goes faster than anyone, was previously Matt Damon, who was going fastest, but that's changed now.
Jason Bourne himself.
Jason Bourne himself, yeah, exactly. Who's popped into the chat as well. I hope he's not going to be on the chat whilst he's racing. That seems like a very unsensible thing to do. But what I was going to say is something. It's completely escaped my mind, so it doesn't really matter now. But yeah,
I still believe we should have that meme. That's the TikTok video where it's the section of the first Jason Bourne movie where the guy's like, "Oh my God, that's Jason." Of course, he doesn't say it that way. He says a little bit differently. But oh my God, that's Jason Bourne. we need that.
Yeah, we do. I feel like we need like a little button we can press. It was like a soundboard.
Yep.
Where we can just pull that kind of thing up. Maybe that's something.
Is a gorgeous livery. Look at that.
Maybe it's something we need to think about for season number 8. Now, this is an interesting one. I don't know if you know the story about this one, and whether anyone else in the chat knows this is watching as well. But that is
at least from. Oh, I do remember. This is the AI generated.
I was going to say AI
livery,
generated Cosmic Kitten livery, which is amazing. Like, he's actually sent me the instructions to download the app, and I've tried it. I haven't gotten around to doing it properly, but it's
pretty fun.
It's so cool, isn't it? Like, I work with AI at work. And just text generate, like the chat GPT kind of stuff, and that's cool. Like, this is another level in my opinion. Like, the fact that he's managed to get that onto a livery is so cool.
It is, and there's an interesting debate. Of course, we're completely off the sim racing topics at the moment, but there's an interesting debate out there about whether or not chat or AI generated art is art, and how it's really annoying because technically it does steal from other artists at times. And I see it as another form of art, if you will, because it does take a specific prompt. So, like, not everyone can generate a really nice AI-generated art, which sounds weird. So, I mean, computers only do what you really tell them to, for the most part.
Right, exactly. Yeah, picnic. Problem in chair, not in computer is a famous word I remember from my IT support days. You're absolutely right. Like, it is. I think that's the same thing. It's, without going down the whole art debate, like, it's subjective, isn't it? Like, it's open to interpretation. Like, I could type in something very similar into whatever platform that Ollie's used to generate the livery, but it could come out completely different because it's just the way that it interprets what I type out. So,
yep, very true.
It's a point you could labour for hours, isn't it? Essentially, but there's going to be, we can go down to that if this race does become a bit of a snooze fest, which I don't expect it will be, because let's face it, whenever you and I commentated on a pos per race that hasn't been entertaining in some way, shape or form.
Right, and like you were saying, we did see some of the times that were being put up in practice. Now, practice is a little bit different than race time, of course, because the stress levels and the overall probably effort is just kind of like, okay, I'm practicing, I don't want to do anything crazy right now. Of course, we're not in the real world, so it's not like we're damaging the car, but based on the times that we saw, it should be an unbelievably close race. And even right now, looking at the times, it's already shaping up to be. Yeah,
absolutely. And there's some familiar names, of course, sitting at the top, and there will be names that will come further at the top as well. I'm sure I can already see the likes of Zappa and Erdman and Matt Damon all improving at the moment. Even Jamie Buchanan, who is I'm sure he won't mind me saying he's not normally a staple up at the top end of the grid, but sitting in the top 10 at the moment, that is seriously impressive. And just as impressive as that is, but it's of course the livery that he's driving in as well. Now, I'm not one to blow smoke up someone's rear end, but unfortunately, POSPER boss man Mark Roddenberry has smashed this livery out of the park. I think we talked about this on before, haven't we? 8 hours of work went into this one, which is quite impressive.
That is one of my favorite ones, because if you've ever created a livery or attempted to create a livery before, it's not just the sheer design aspect. It's the alignment and the crazy stuff that you have to go through to make it look right on the actual car. You can't just put a flat image on there and magically it just looks correct. You have to align things. You have to change the shape of some textures. You have to do a lot more than just simply copy paste a bunch of logos and ta-da. So this one is super impressive, and I definitely can respect the art behind what was done.
Falling into the art trap again.
I know. It's just all over the place. I mean, the livery situation, I mentioned it a little bit in one of the recent episodes of the podcast as well, where, you know, I wish we would go a little crazier. Now, luckily, in the POSPER lineup of cars, we have gotten some pretty good ones. The meme car that was amazing. The one with Mark's face on it was funny, just because he should have put it on the back so that Mark could follow him and just stare at himself the whole time. But I want liveries to go a little crazier in the world of sim racing, because you don't have to worry about broken parts. You don't have to worry about replacing panels. Let's go nuts with these things. Let's make them really cool. Like Fast and the Furious comes to mind.
Oh, don't.
From the old days. Like, let's do the corny stuff again.
Oh god, like Need for Speed Underground sort of vibes.
Yeah, let's.
Going back to what you said about Ollie Gill's livery, I am led to believe, I'm reliably informed, and we'll check this on the grid walk in a little while, but I'm reliably informed that the picture of Mark is somewhere on that car still.
It's like a Where's Waldo situation.
Yeah, okay. I've not seen it. So I don't know if that's true or not, but I've been...
It's a genius. Tell the broadcaster that the face is on the car somewhere. Don't tell him where.
I know,
so you
yeah.
get featured all the time. Genius move.
Unfortunately, because I'm only running off the one PC, I can't just get another one fired up and just use that without giving him all the airtime. Like, don't get me wrong, I'm obviously joking, I don't mind. But I can look at it and think, oh god, like, he's done this on purpose. It's probably nowhere to be seen. Or
right,
it's
there
like...
is no face at all. Or it's inside the car on, like, one of the roll bars.
That's what I was going to say. Yeah. Oh, dear. It's, lots to figure out. But as we see... Another improvement from Carol Shogulis. We probably should talk about kind of where they are on the standings at the moment, because we've got 8 and a bit minutes left of this qualifying session. Of course, the important saying, as mentioned before, will set the grid for both of these two 30-minute races. Miles Dixon on your screen at the moment. He's 3/10 back. Matt Damon a further 10th back from him, and then Dario Zappa another half a 10th back, and then Marcus Hagel a further 8/10. 800ths of a second rather. Back there, it's as we always tend to see, Chris, and it's continuing to do so as Ash Coupland sticks himself right up in the mix there as well. It's closing up more and more. I mean, I'm looking through our timing screen on our end. For starters, there's 35 people in the server now, so that's gone up. But it's like no matter how many people we have, it's really, really close, and I don't get how it happens.
It just means that, you know, overall, a lot of these drivers have actually been with POSPER for quite a while now, right?
Mm-hmm.
So overall, that considered, just simply racing in leagues does improve your driving. So some of the timing sheets probably a couple seasons ago were a lot wider. Now they're compacting up so much that the competition's just getting better, better, and better, and these drivers are just improving with every single race. And then the interesting thing about competition is even if, let's say, you're not quite up to snuff, but you're with a group of people that hold a standard that's a little bit higher than what yours is, it boosts you.
Yeah.
Like, your competitive nature sets in and it boosts you so you drive better as well. It's generally bringing the entire field up a little bit. So you'd like it when it's close like this, because no one's out in the back going, well, it's useless for me to try now. I'm so far behind. I'll just go to the pits and quit. It's just fabulous racing.
Yeah, 100%. Which is never a bad thing. Always happy to see more and more people jump on the grid, and seeing seeing 35 this far into the season, like I know we're only 6 rounds in, but like you normally get quite a sizable drop off, and I believe this is actually the most we've had on the grid so far this season, which when I cast my mind back to sort of seasons 3 and 4, when I first kind of got involved and started kind of throwing my weight around here, seeing sort of like 16, 17 people for a race, this is like it's chalk and cheese, and it's great to see.
Yeah, I think sim racing is slowly progressing towards that stick around for the community, but throw your races together, because a lot of the things that you have a problem with, I would probably call out the F1 games more so than ACC or any of the other racing games out there, is that you'll have the first 2 rounds. Someone won't be in the Constructors' Championship in the case of F1, or they won't be in the Drivers' Championship, and they'll just quit and switch to another league. That's the biggest problem I think we have in sim racing at the moment, is just league hopping. And since you guys can keep a league together and actually keep the grids full, you should start touting those stats when you're looking for new drivers, that you had 35 drivers this deep into the competition, so that they know that it's not just going to be a 5-person grid all of a sudden after round 5.
Yeah, 100%. I think that's the beauty of it. Like, you build it, they come, enjoy it. Generally, we get good racing out of it.
Field of dreams.
Field of, yeah, exactly. I feel like I'm doing a Moneyballs pitch, which feels very appropriate. But yeah, it's just nice to see. It's like a feel-good sort of vibe, isn't it? Now, what is not a feel-good vibe, unfortunately, I do have to bring the sadness into the room a little bit, is this man on camera at the moment. Mark is not enjoying the M6. So we're being told by Mark. Neuterling's in chat, and that is a perfect example.
I mean, that looks pretty. A nice little drift
It
there.
looked great, didn't it? But it's not the fastest way around this circuit, is it? Let's be honest.
No. You know what? I can completely understand where he's coming from. BMWs and my foot and hands just do not mix together. No matter how many times I try to throw a lap together, it always feels like the BMW is twice the weight that it actually is. I don't know what it is, so I can definitely sympathize with not liking the M6 at the moment.
Well, it's the old BM, so it's naturally, I mean, it's not going to be slower than the M4, but it's not going to be quicker by any stretch, unless it obviously got reverse bopped, which is very unlikely. It is worth noting, of course, that the top 4 are all in new cars. So yes, you can see Ferrari and Porsche logos on the top left-hand corner of your screen.
Right.
They're all the new versions. So it's the new Porsche 911, it's 3 296s. Rich Pixley, however, is in the old Porsche 911, so showing that newer isn't always better, I suppose.
Yeah, so I struggle as a developer by day, so I struggle with the fact that video games typically do this. They nerf the old stuff to quote-unquote even them out and give them a more realistic competitive nature, right? But they never really restore speed. They never really go the opposite direction. It's normally slowing them down and not speeding them back or improving them in some way. So you get that ebb and flow of where initial release content kind of gets just nerfed into the ground and then kind of forgotten about. There's a little love tap there on the corner. Luckily, still 15 minutes left in qualifying, so shouldn't really affect things too much, other than maybe a little bit of attitude on that track, but should be okay.
That was one of those where I feel like I saw that coming from a mile off. Now, I went over to Miles because, as you may have seen, Dario Zappa's just gone pole by 800ths of a second. Miles was improving potentially by enough to take that pole position away, but I noticed that he was behind. It was the 523 car. I didn't catch who that was. It's Brown down towards the back end of the grid in the silver class, but it was interesting. I was curious to see whether he'd improved, but he was like so close behind him. It was never going to happen. So there's no surprise in me that that's happened in the end, fortunately.
Yeah. Well, we have to deal with netcode, so 1 inch doesn't necessarily mean 1 inch on the internet. It could be you're literally touching them already. So exactly. We do deal with a couple of unique situations in the world of sim racing as well, where you do have to give probably that virtual 1 foot minimum distance just in case.
Yeah, just be safe with it all.
Pause per car going off. I was
going to say, there's Mark Roddenberry, decides to create a new version of the track here at the Misano circuit, which is an interesting view to go with. Now, looking at Sebastian Erdmann on your screen at the moment. Now, he actually, I'm pretty sure he chimed in earlier, wanted to change his car again. So he wanted to go to a third car. He doesn't really need it, does he? Because he's 7.5 tenths off. Like, he's within a second. He's within the top 10. Like, he's improving. He is. This lap's been invalidated because he went wide coming out of out onto the back straight a moment ago. But he's still doing good times. Like, I'd be interested to see what would be different. Was he to go into an even quicker car, in his opinion?
Yeah, I'd actually really be curious to ask, why did you want to switch when you seem to be pretty fast in this car already?
Well, I mean, Sebastian...
That's a lot of points to give up for a double switch.
Yeah. So, well, for reference, we don't allow more than one switch, otherwise you get people doing different cars every time. You got to think of the admins to a certain extent. Now, Sebastian, if you're watching this back, I'd love to get some thoughts from you. I'd love to understand why. Like, I'm not... That sounded like I was really like, we should do that. What's wrong with you? Something.
Yeah. The admin giving you the slap on the wrist.
It sounded like that, didn't it? That wasn't how it meant to come across. It was more of a case of like a genuine question. Like,
yeah, what was the mindset? What enticed you to be like, you know what? I think that's the car for me instead. So
exactly.
It'd be an interesting thing to find out.
100%. As we go into the final 10 seconds. So still got a few people on a lap at the moment. Miles Dixon is one of those. He's just popped into the chat. I feel like he was in the chat when he was on the outlap, maybe, because he said oops. I mean, it's ops, but I assume it means oops. As the time does hit 0. Nice big long wait time. Presumably the server was set to spar last time, so just giving him an extra bit of time. But we'll see whether anything's going to change. Jurgulis comes across the line. He's going to improve. Is he? No, he isn't. He does improve in here. No, in fact, no. My apologies. He sets exactly the same time. No, he doesn't. Just seen the last bit's updated. Ignore me. I'm going, man. I'm going mad.
We'll get there. Trust me.
Eventually. We'll struggle at some point. We'll struggle our way through. Next person who's going to cross the line who's making any signs of improvement is this man, Miles Dixon. He's around about a tenth or so up as he comes through Curva del Caro and through the last couple of corners. We'll see if he can make any more significant improvements through Curva Misano to finish off the lap. Got to make sure you don't go too wide, which he does. And as you can see there,
that's perfect.
Yeah, if you want to invalidate the lap, that is the perfect line. And then we've got a few more. The only man who's currently improving is this man, Mike Richards. He's a couple of tenths up. And looking at that, just about going to put him on the outer reaches of the top 10 by the looks of it, if he carries on doing what he's doing. So we'll have to keep an eye on that as he comes through final couple of corners. Keeps the entry nice and clean. It does exactly what he needs to do. Gained a little bit more time. What's it going to be as he crosses over the line? P11 in the end for that man. So good result in the end for Mike, right on the back end of the top 10. And that is it's an impressive lap to wrap things up, because I think you and I agree. I mean, for starters, we're the kind of people who I believe, as we said before, we're the ones who will... what am I trying to say? We'll put the fastest lap in straight away and then never get anywhere near it afterwards. But...
Yeah, I will 100% put my fastest out right away, because I know that I would be the type of person that would mess up that final run, that I'm like, oh, this is going to be my run. I'd run wide and go into the sand, just like we saw.
Yeah, exactly. It's a fun one to do. Oh, see, what they've done is they've changed the settings in Discord now, so I can't actually no Discord, sorry, in ACC, so I can't go on to the broadcast to actually watch that now. Oh yeah, I can. I fixed it, don't worry. Should be a bit stupid. Ignore me. Just trying to get our little positive perception segue up and running, so we can go and have a look at everyone on the track. Talk amongst yourselves while I move that into position.
So what does the weather forecast for this race look like? I didn't even pay attention to that in the slightest. Could we see some rain?
No, I don't think we will, unfortunately. It doesn't look like we will anyway. It's looking...
Always the commentators wanting rain.
I know, yeah. It's not... No, unfortunately, it's not looking like we're going to see any rain. There's not been, so far as I know, any rain in the server up until this point. So I'm going to assume that won't be the case.
Right.
But... we'll have to wait and see, won't we? Should we have a look through? Should we have a look through the grid and see what's going on? Let's have a look, and let's see if we can find the infamous Mark Roddenberry picture on Ollie Gio's Ferrari. So, front row of the grid is Dario Zappa and Karolis Jurgulis. Second row of the grid, Matt Damon and Miles Dixon. It's an all Ferrari second row of the grid. We've then got the Porsche of Rich Pixley and the BMW of Marcus Hagel alongside those two. And then Ash Coupland in the Ferrari for this one, and Sebastian Erdmann in the Porsche, rounding out 7th and 8th position. And Martin Thorpe and Thomas van der Struijs rounding out your top 10. Onto the 6th row of the grid is Mike Richards and Ivo van Collenberg, with I think it's Jordan Story, apologies, and Aaron Kirby alongside him, who's made a rare return back into ACC. Gianluca De Luca and Carlo Durazio in EOS Esports, 15th to 16th place with Peter Phillips and Steve Derrick in the Pro GT Aston Martin, 17th and 18th respectively, with them Jamie Buchanan in that beautiful D2 livery. And then this is the one we want to have a quick look at. Let's have a quick skim around. Stop me if you spot the face. I don't think it's going to be on here, is it? What he's done here is he's managed to get a full 360 of his car.
Of his car, because he told you it was on there. Maybe it's in like the cat eye or something.
Let's have a look.
I don't see
Go
it.
above it. It's not there, is it?
Nope, I can't find it. Okay.
We've been told porkies. Let's go up here for the rest of it. We see more anyway. Andrea De Perna in the 101 BMW with Andrea De Candia sitting alongside him. Gaz Gazulina is in 23rd place, and there's Nick Karianis alongside him. And we've then got Mark Cooper in 25th. And then, oh my god, I've lost my list of people. Where have they gone? There we go. This is not ideal, is it? Goodness me. This is proper budget format, this is. Alberti in 26th. There's some new names on this. I don't know the first names. Martin de Groot and Mark Raddenbury in 27th and 28th with James Fletcher. And Colin Dunn in the Bentley in rounding out the top 30 on the grid. We've then got Panya Menta in that BMW on the left. Rob Besant apparently is... It's got a bit... Oh, sorry. Bren Jones in 32nd. That's Ferrari on the right of your screen. Rob Besant there on the left. Elisa Rees in a pit lane at the moment, which is a little bit strange. In fact, that's because we have actually started the formation lap. And then Brown will round out the grid. As you can see, we've started the formation lap because now it's starting to go a little bit mad. Let's get back onto there. Right, one thing we're going to do, we did this last time and it worked out really, really nicely, is I'm going to hop into Discord. I hope he's expecting, and I hope he's not going to be swearing as I do this, but I'm going to bring into the chat the man on screen at the moment, which is Ash Coupland. Ash, good evening to you, sir. New car for this evening. Of course, you know you're used to the Aston Martin. How is the Ferrari faring for you so far tonight?
Well, I've changed the Ferrari just out of chance, really. I had to go with the Aston. It felt awful. I thought, you know what, I'll try the new Ferrari, and it instantly went a second quicker. So I was like, might as well use that tonight.
It's that new car buff, isn't it? Chris and I were talking about it earlier. I mean, looking at the fact that 7 of the top 10 are in new cars from the patch, it kind of adds up, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does, definitely.
Good stuff. And obviously, look, top 10, it's a good result. Obviously, you're going to be losing those 50 points because of the change of car, obviously, but gives you a chance to get some decent points on the board. What are you expecting? Are you hoping to make up positions to the guys in front of you, or are you hoping to just kind of manage expectations in this first one?
I'm hoping to make up some positions. I had about 2.5 tenths in qualifying lap, but my headset decided to die on my first lap, so I lost all engine noises, and it's quite hard to drive without engine noise. I think I've got more pace. Race pace is decent. So yeah, we'll see what happens, basically.
Good stuff. Well, look, I'll let you carry on. I can see on your screen at the moment very aggressively getting the car up to temperature, so we'll let you crack on and do that. We'll get a chance to chat with you again after the first race. So good luck in this one, and we'll catch you in a little while. Good luck.
See you later.
I'll move him back into the actual chat as well, so he doesn't have to sit and listen to us ramble on for the next half an hour or so, because I'm sure he wouldn't appreciate us doing that. Lovely to have a chat with Ash there. It's quite nice to do these sorts of things. I know that kind of saw it on the V8 Supercars. It'd be quite fun to get everyone else in. Have a little chat with them.
Yeah, I've been kind of watching some broadcasts as of late, just because I'm trying to perfect the commentary craft. But I've seen some interesting things in like the rallycross world, where they would do driver cams, where the driver would actually broadcast their cam view so we could see them in real life on the stream as well. It was kind of an interesting little feature.
That sounds like a very nice touch indeed. To go through the final corner on the first of 2 formation outs for this evening, Dario Zappa, supported by Ratu Panugu in the chat, is going to lead us off. Karolis Yogulis will be alongside him, awaiting for the lights to go green any second now. And then Yogulis is actually miles ahead of Zappa as they go green off the lights. That is an
Wow,
awful
okay.
prepared start from the Ferrari. He's actually potentially going to get jumped by contact between himself and Matt
contact.
Damon.
Oh, is he gonna? Oh, straight lined up across that turn.
Deary
That's
me,
danger.
it's all gone absolutely
This
Pete
looks-
Tong. This is
That's
Quick.
the worst start we've seen in a long time.
That
in
is-
Hotspur.
yeah.
That was intense. So now anything can happen. All those cars that some of them avoided nicely, some of them came in contact, but overall, yeah, now wide open for points here. So who knows what's going to happen at this point? That
absolutely
basically just jumbled up the whole entire qualifying.
But yeah, it's kind of meant that qualifying was obsolete for this particular race. Anyway, hopefully we don't see a repeat of that in race 2. And we've said it already, and we'll say it again. That's the beauty of this fact that we've got 2 races. Like I know it's not ideal. You don't want that kind of thing to happen, but at least you've got that opportunity to come out and do another race after as well.
Interestingly, you know, it was all just started by that terrible start by the Ferrari there. Who was in that Ferrari? Was that
That was Zappa, I believe.
that bad start kind of made him come off of his line a little bit. And it changed up the entire top 4. Well, not really the first the leader, but it changed up so many things that I think a little bit more room could have been left on the driver on the outside, which I'm not even sure who it was. It was one of those pink and yellow cars. But all in all, I mean, I think it was preventable. I really do. I think with a little bit more room in that first turn, we could have been okay.
Well, interestingly, those eagle-eyed of you may have just noticed that we have actually. Well, I can see that the admin, so Mark, I presume it's Mark anyway. I don't know how much he was impacted by that, but has elected to restart the session. So that's why we've come back to this kind of holding screen, just to wait for that to kick on, because yeah, we are going to be restarting that race. So consider that red flag. Reset the grid.
Red flag.
Standing start.
Okay.
How does the guy do it on the virtual Le Mans? It's like red flag. Like it's the most. You know what? If you've seen it, you'll know what I mean. Like it's the most monotone voice I've ever heard.
In the virtual world, what do you think? Red flag that race or let it roll?
I kind of do agree. Like I'm looking at. Fortunately, I can still see all the stats from the race itself, and I can see. Like the changes in position. So I can see Zappa like lost 25 positions, Erdmann lost 17, Richards 24, Durazio 14. Like don't get me wrong, the amount of people it's impacted in a negative space is far less than it has in a positive light. But I do feel like when that kind of thing happens, like you can't, like you do run that risk of that kind of thing happens. People look, like we said it earlier. You talk about when like maybe you're not scoring points. Like that's the kind of thing. If that happens, the damage that those guys are experiencing is probably what, a minute in the pits, add an extra 30 seconds, give or take, whatever it might be. Like that's then what, 26, 27 minutes of the race where you're just kind of driving around for the sake of it. I can see why they've done it, is what I'm saying. Like it's not, I don't feel like it's a melodramatic thing to go and restart it, because ultimately it has had a big impact on the race.
I think I'm on the opposite side. I think you let that race run because of the mix-up that did happen. We're in the virtual world, so it's not like anyone's in risk of getting injured because of debris on the track or anything like that. So I think you let it run and then let the point shakeup actually have some kind of effect there. Because now, anyone who benefited from that situation, they're almost kicked right in the gut. Because they're like, oh, wow, I gained this many places. I could actually maybe make it into the points this race. Oh, it's a restart. Never mind. I'm to where I was.
That's a fair point. I think it's tough. I think if I look at it from the angle I'm maybe considering it from, I'm looking at it from like an F1 perspective. Think about it, the fact that like by the time that incident had happened and it had really kind of gone anywhere, like it's barely a sector into the race. Like the first sector is just before the back straight. For those of you who don't know kind of the sector layout on ACC for Misano. So in theory, you look at the fact that probably would have been red flag by that point, and therefore, in my opinion, you're going back to a standing start, and obviously you're picking up the qualifying positions. Now, one thing I will add is that Dario Zappa has actually left the server, along with one other person whose name I can't tell because I can't see who it is. I think it might be Mark Brown, who is at the back of the grid, which is why I can't necessarily tell. But that does mean that Yogulis is now on pole, which essentially, as we said before, he kind of was anyway, because he got such a good positioning on the start of that one. He was what, 10 meters ahead of Zappa as they even started the race rather.
Yeah, that was an interesting start for sure. Yeah, I guess, and also there's 2 races, so letting that race play out and then they have a second chance on the next race, I think is perfectly fine. I don't know.
I think it's one of those, isn't it? I think it is generally open to debate. Like, some people think one way, some people think the other. You probably get that one person who maybe thinks completely differently and goes completely off the edge of it and thinks of it entirely different. So I think there's validity and there's rationale behind wanting to do it any other way. I know that from experiencing and unfortunately being involved in stuff like this in the past, you can kind of back for it depending on where you are in the race as a result. Like you said before, you could be the likes of the likes of a Rob Bessett, for example. I'm picking out because he's 32nd on the grid. You could pick him out and look at it and go, oh well, he's 32nd, he could go up to 10th, like that's unfair to restart it. But then you could also look at it on the flip side, can't you? And you look at the Zappers and go, well, he started on pole, and because of an incident, he's now like back in 30th. So he would want the race to restart. Yeah. So it's difficult. It's a tough balance. You can't please everyone at the end of the day.
Yeah, I think when it comes to losing the place because of a bad start or an incident, that is just racing in general. You know, it's the same thing as if your engine shuts off. In the real world, you don't necessarily get to have a restart just because of that. We're in the world of sim, so one of the things that I've talked about in the past is that I kind of want to, not that I want to, but we have the luxury of being able to do things a little bit differently than real world motorsport and separate ourselves a little bit more as an e-sport rather than people always thinking that sim racing is some kind of funnel into real racing. And these kind of incidents, while they are unfortunate for probably half the grid, they're also fortunate for the other half. So since there's no real danger in anyone getting injured or anything other than egos being affected, I think you let that run. I really do.
It's a debate that we could continue for hours. I think
it'll give us something to talk about.
Absolutely. Again, if this race tends to fizzle out unlike it did in the first attempt at this one, then maybe who knows what will happen. But yeah, we'll have to see how that plays out. Now, interestingly, I can see that Zappa and Brown have both jumped back into the server. They are in the pit lane at the moment, as you can see on the track map. So we'll see whether they get out. Of course, that would mean they're probably held for about 30 seconds, won't it? So
here's the big question. We're about to start here, so I'll hold off my question until we see if turn 1 ends up in disaster.
We'll see what happens as we wait for the green light to go for race 1, part 2 here on the Positive Perception GT Championship here at Misano. We're underway. There's a couple of drive-throughs straight off the bat for Gasolina and Cooper back down the back end of the grid, but it looks like we're getting through a little bit more cleanly than we did in the first round. Looks like there's been fierce war. There's a bit of a nudge there. Mark Cooper or Ash Coupland spun round in there.
Oh, straight across turn 2.
It's largely... Oh, there you go. It then becomes very messy at the end.
See, now here's going to be the big debate with all the drivers. So the first start affected everyone up front, and all the back people got through. The second start, all the front people got through, and all the back marker got caught up in an incident. So now, rather than flipping it so the faster drivers have to go back up through the grid, now you have the slower drivers that probably can't necessarily catch up.
It's a very good argument. Like, it's so difficult to...
You, of course, could never predict that to happen a second time. So, obviously, the decision has been made already. But there is going to be that, like, if I was the person in the back that got caught up in the incident on the second restart, I'm like, I had a chance in that first one. Why didn't we just let it run? And I'm super frustrated at that point.
No, exactly. I was trying to go back and see what happened to this man, Sebastian Erdmann, but can't see what happened to him. I'll see if I can find it in the contact logs. I mean, there's so much to pick up on, so it's going to be quite difficult for me to actually find it, I'll be completely honest. But as we round off the first lap of this one, the top 3 is exactly as we left them. It is Carella Shergulis leading the way, Matt Damon in P2, Miles Dixon in P3. Rich Pixley has made up his position. In fact, no, the top 5 is as they were, sorry, because I have to pick up on the fact the grid is different because of the fact it's restarted. It's all very confusing. So, all the top 5 are in the same position. Thomas van der Stroys gained a few positions off the start. He's up 4 He's up 3, sorry, from P9 in the grid. Martin Thorpe up a position. He's up into P7. Eva van Collenberg gaining positions. The main losers out of that one are Sebastian Erdmann and Ash Coupland. Now I'm going to go and see if... I don't know if I'll be able to find what's happened to Mr. Erdmann because... Oh, no. Apologies, he is still there. Let's see if we can do a bit of digging on here. I'm trying to find... No, I don't think I've got any contact, which is weird. I'm trying to look through my list because my app picks up on the contact, but I can't see anything, which is a strange one. But, yeah, you're right. I mean, look. Ultimately, everyone's gotten out of there cleaner than they did in the first race, Chris, which is the main thing.
Yeah, now we're back to what I would call normal racing mode, where now people have to, while they don't have an hour, so it's not a very long race, so you do have to pick and choose and make your moves kind of earlier than you may want to. It's now, okay, let's see how this person in front of me is driving. Let's see what lines they're taking. Let's make a plan so that in about 25 minutes, I can make my move.
Exactly. Spend 25 minutes sizing up the man or woman in front of you and see whether you can do it, and then find out that you probably could have done it earlier and you don't have to worry about it. But it's all part of the fun.
Yeah, there's also the other mindset where it's spend 25 minutes torturing the guy's mirrors in front of you, so that, you know, maybe you force a mistake and then have to torture the next person's mirrors for 10 minutes.
It's a lose-lose situation. Either way, you want to make the moves.
That's how I race. When I'm on the track, I'm not really super aggressive for overtakes. What I do is I tease an overtake so that the driver in front of me misses a braking point so that they make a mistake. I always feel a little bit more comfortable when they're off in the sand because they missed a braking point and I'm just driving by, rather than like door to door going into a corner where I'm like, there's not enough room for both of us, so I don't know what's going to happen here. Just that's my driving style. Is
Absolutely.
Just take advantage of those mistakes.
It's got to be done, as we see Mike Richards making advantages of Eva van Collenberg's mistakes there. Gets up the inside into Quersha Curve and gets the move done. Gets himself up into P8, so good start from him. Much better start than he had to the last race, because he was one of those who was caught very much up in that instant. Jeremy Story in the Top Gear sim racing car behind him, the TGSR, which is appropriately acronymed for us, which is always nice. And Kirby sitting in P11 in the Positive Perception Ferrari, one of those two charity-inspired livery cars. If you close in for a further look, I'm not going to do it right now, but there is a livery done with Mind charity in consideration, which is lovely to see. So fantastic job from Posper bossman Mark Radenbury on that one, who himself has had a very good start to this race, Chris. He's gained what? I'm just going to have a quick look. He's gained 10 positions off the start. That's
nice.
Exactly what you want, especially when you're in a car that maybe isn't the fondest one you've ever driven.
Yeah, he was saying, I think we were talking about in quali, that he's not really feeling the M6 all that much at the moment, but it looks like it's doing fine.
Doing fine for now. I mean, we saw him get very tail happy coming out onto the back straight in the qualifying session, didn't we? So hopefully
he did try to
doesn't
take a
do that.
cross line at one point. So we'll see what happens with that. So back to that question that I was going to ask right before the start of the race. So we don't necessarily know if the two people who did drop out from the server, if it was a rage quit situation and they were notified that the race was restarted, so they came back in. But let's pretend it is. So they rage quit, right? They come back into the server and they start from the pits. Do they have to start from the pits on the second race, or do they get their places back on the second grid?
Oh, that's a good question. I think they will get their positions back, if I'm not mistaken, because technically they still partook in qualifying, and I'm 99% sure ACC stores that result log. So even though they technically left, they're still logging in the same Steam ID and all that sort of stuff. So it should be able to kind of piece it together.
An accidental disconnect, not necessarily, like, obviously Steam and ACC can't really know whether or not it was a rage quit and you just Alt F4'd or if something crashed or whatever it may be, right?
That'd be good if you could do that, wouldn't it? That'd be great. Ash Cooper nipping into the chase, fuming. He is in the pit lane at the moment. I'm not sure whether... Let me know, Ash, if you want us to come back to you for the second formation lap, because I can appreciate you might not be in the best of moods after that eventful first couple of corners, should we say. So if you'd rather stay quiet for the second one, that's absolutely fine. We will not judge you for it, because, yeah, I it is one of them, isn't it, Chris? I mean, you put so much time and effort in, and I'm not gonna like. Obviously, we didn't see the full incident, so I can't see like who was at fault or anything like that. And the stewards will obviously do their part in that respect as well. But it is frustrating, isn't it, when you put all that time and effort in to get yourself in the headspace, prepare, get the setup ready, start putting some good lap times in, and then what? Within 2 corners, you're facing backwards, loads of damage,
Right.
and can't finish the race. Like, it is frustrating, isn't it?
Oh yeah, I mean, again, I'm gonna say the cliche thing. That's racing, but it is. There's nothing that anyone can say that's going to fix the frustration that comes out when those things happen. You know, we've all been part of it. Even the actual 24 hours of Bathurst that we did, my car, Forward Pause per team, didn't end up being able to come out of the pits after a certain amount of damage and repairs and things. And it was very frustrating because, you know, I spent 3 weeks driving around that track just trying to make it so
Yeah.
that all I wanted to do was finish. And then the iRacing gods said no, wouldn't let me start anymore, which was very unfortunate. But, you know, I tried to take it with as much, I'm searching for the, like, positively,
Yeah.
but there was just, it was impossible. I'm sitting there, I was sitting in the car in iRacing, not allowed to race for probably 20 minutes, just going, oh man, this sucks. Like, this is terrible.
Well, I remember, because obviously I'd raced as well. We were in separate teams, but we were keeping an eye on each other, weren't we, throughout the race? And I remember jumping in and you saying that, and I think you'd sat there for, sat there for about 35 minutes waiting for the car to be fixed, and then nothing happened. I was gutted for you, like, to go that far in, because what were we, about 10 hours into the 12 hours it was, and it was...
It was 12, right? It wasn't 24. But yeah, we were a couple hours out from the finish, and you know, all I wanted to do was bring it home for the second team or first team, however you want to look at it. The other team, we'll just say. And it just iRacing said no, and I understand that. Now, in our case, it was our own doing. We hit the wall a couple times and we did a bunch of damage. And Ash, in your case this time, yeah, sometimes the gods of racing just don't want to be on your side. Especially, you know, we had him in here for the pre-race, and he was feeling pretty good about the lap times and how he was improving and ready to race in the new car. And unfortunately, here we are. Sorry, buddy.
Absolutely. Hopefully, better chance to get a good showing in the second race and gather some all-important points for this one, as we see Bren Jones making his way past, I believe is it Federico Alberti? It is. I'm not going to lie, I've completely guessed that it was going to be Federico, and I've clicked on it, so I'm glad that's worked out well. As we can see, Pagnamenta with a drive-through for their troubles. Nicolo Pagnamenta in the row racing at BMW. I don't know whether that is... I mean, it can't be off the start because we're 6 laps in, so I know that Misano is a particularly tough one to avoid making any track limit violations. If he's managed to get 3 track limit warnings in the first 6 laps, that's quite impressive.
Yeah, that's a lot right away. You must be just ignoring them at that point. But to be fair, this is a track where you really have to push those track limits. You have to try to get away with anything. Now, obviously, getting away with things when a computer's the one calculating distance is a little bit different than stewards calculating distance and maybe missing something. But still, you do have to try to push, and if you're just that little bit off and then you get dinged for it, you're gonna have to do that drive-through.
Yeah, exactly. It's it's one of them. I think I might have called back to this memory in the past. So I did a race with another community, and I somehow, through sheer luck, other than anything else, it definitely wasn't skill or pace, I ended up first in a race. And there was about 40 people in this race. I was quite pleased with myself to get to that point. And I had 3 track limit warnings, and every part of me was saying, take it easy, wait, fine, plenty of time, don't extend, you know what I do the next lap? Drive through. Finished 5th. Absolutely gutted.
Those are so annoying too, because you're like, it was like maybe a centimeter here. I could have just avoided that. Like, track limit warnings they're annoying, especially if you're pushing in different corners or different sections of the track. So like it's almost like you feel like you've already done that before, but you may have gone a little further to the left or right. And you're like, I didn't get a warning before, but you were that fraction of a centimeter or one fraction of a millimeter that the computer was triggered, which is the interesting thing about sim racing, because we don't have stewards eyeballing that. We don't have people that can be like, that's close enough. We have a literal hard stop calculated number inside the program that's calculating that for us.
Yeah, exactly. It's a frustrating one, especially when you feel like you've done it before and it's come out fine. As we can see, very, very close there.
Oof.
Pole sitter elect of Dario Zappa trying to get round Alberti.
Oh, straightening back up.
He did a relatively good job of getting back pointed in the right direction. I was about to say it was actually really, really good defending from Alberti, because I noticed as we panned over to them as they're coming into the first couple of corners, like it looked as though Zappa had actually made the move. He was actually along the outside. He would have the inside into the second corner, and he probably would have just been able to close him out. But Alberti did a great job of defending that as far as he did. And the undercut, or the switchback, whatever you want to call it, it just looked like it was on, but just misjudged slightly by Zappa. Fortunately, like I say, didn't impact Federico Alberti too much, because he did give him a nice courtesy nudge to get him back pointing in the right direction, which is always a good
That's
thing.
a hard situation there, because with that switchback, he was in his blind spot that he can't really see.
Yeah.
Especially if you're on triples and you know, you don't have the ability to like move your head around to like see the mirrors or whatever. So you're in a situation where you hear the car in your left ear, you see the little radar, which you're probably not paying attention to, let's be honest, because it's hard to pay attention to like 4 different things at the same time. But even that radar probably just showed the boxes being super, super close. So you have no idea how much space you have there. None.
I mean, it's never perfect as well, is it? Like, it's one of them, you hear the mentioning of clear, and you think, oh, cool, I'm fine. But then there's always potential. Like, mention netcode as a prime example. Like, it's not gonna be exactly the same for every person. There's always going to be that element of I'm trying to think of what the word is, but like interpretation, for want of a better phrase. So you just got to be careful. And it's unfortunate. There was nothing intentional there. I think we can say that much. Like, it's just an unfortunate coming together, and it's one of those where I think if you're reading like I don't know if it's the same for you guys over in the States, but here you'd get like a real cheap, tacky newspaper, probably making up the fact that he was trying to get his way back through the grid and he purposefully punted off Alberti, when we all know it's not the
Drive
case.
to Survive kind of drama. Here we go.
Exactly, yeah. There'll be a picture of Alberti's car with no rear wing attached to it or something stupid, even though it was absolutely fine. So, it's always that you've got to look forward to when you're watching these kinds of things. Maybe we'll have to start doing that for the thumbnails for these streams, like pictures of absolute carnage. Put the most clickbaity title and see what they do.
Luckily, we do this all the time where we almost steward incidents in the races, and then we go, but we're not stewards, so we don't know. But saying that, I think it was a racing incident, and then, you know, the worst thing that happened was the double contact, but the secondary contact was perfect because it did get him lined back up so he can get back into control of his car and stay in the race.
Exactly. I mean, ultimately, he's lost 5 seconds, Alberti, has to Zappa, but 6 seconds now. But in the nice way possible, that's probably about the amount of time that he would gain over the next couple of laps just by the fact that he's that much quicker. So I don't think it makes a difference. As you see, Van der Stroys, is he going to lose the position to Thorpe? We'll see. We're alongside each other at the moment. This is the best I can get you, because we've got Rich Pixley very much in tow as well. That Porsche isn't the quickest thing in the straight line, is it? So he's not going to have the best of opportunities, or is he going to look up the inside? That's a lovely move.
That was well done.
Really, really well crafted move
all
from
the
Pixley
speed
there.
too. You see him; he had to hit the brakes pretty heavy on that because he was coming up to the back end.
That was a really, really nice, tidy move there from Pixley, wasn't it? He just, like you say, he used the draft perfectly. He got all of the speed out of there, and then I was going to say, it didn't really even look like Van der Stroys had left the door open. I think the amount of closing speed that Rich had gave him the opportunity to almost force his way in.
Yeah, it's one of those, you look up, he's way behind you, you look back down, you're like, wait, why is he on my door? What?
It's like that. It's like the horror films, isn't it? Where you look away and you look back and something's getting closer to you every time.
Right, you're like,
kind of feels like that.
Away and he's walking.
Either way, lovely move from Rich Pixley. Gets himself back up into 6th place. He's lost a couple of positions off the start to Martin Thorpe, the man ahead of him on track, and Marcus Hagel, who's ahead of him as well. But he's got a poor exit out to the. You can't really call it the back straight, can you? Because it's not. The back straight's the really long bit on the back of the track. luckily though, he's made it around the
Oh, wow.
outside.
What happened there? That was an interesting exchange because the Mercedes was right up there, about to pass, and now got past instead.
Maybe needs to put some more Starbucks in the car. I can see the logo on the side of the car. It's clearly needs a bit more juice into it. Was it Java juice they call it? I think is the term. We'll have to...
Java's coffee, I think.
Yeah. That's why I feel
I'm
like
not a
anyway.
coffee guy. I'm a tea guy. So.
There you go. Smart man. Did you see a battle for, what is this, P12? Gianluca De Luca and Ollie Geel going side by side down the back straight, flat out through here. Ollie Geel is going to have to yield, but is he going to try and make the move back on his competitors? He goes up the inside. Does he? No. I tell you what, that looked to me, I don't know if you saw it in the same way, Chris, but it looked to me like De Luca braked really late, or Ollie obviously braked really early, which he did, but it looked like De Luca had braked so late he was going to miss the corner entirely. So I was quite impressed he actually made it.
Yeah, that was a very, very, very late break. I do think that we have a little bit of a I'll do it later situation right here where you didn't... Who are we following right now? Where he didn't want to go after the overtake in that section of the track. Because there are sections where you just feel a little bit more confident in your corners. And there are many times where it's just like, okay, wait until we still have what? Well, we only have about 3 minutes, so... Or no, 11 minutes. I'm looking.
I was going to say, where are you
every
seeing
single time
3
I look
minutes?
I looked at pit wall for a moment. So we have 11 minutes left. You have plenty of time to go around the track a couple times, pick and choose your corners. If you know you have the speed, just let it happen. But you got a little bit of a problem coming up the backside there. So
Yeah, Steve Derrick is very much imposing a figure on the rear end of this Cosmic Kitten Ferrari, isn't he? He's closer, well, Derrick is closer to Geel than Geel is to De Luca based on the timing at the moment. So not necessarily chances at the moment for Ollie to potentially consider making that move further up again. Oh, a little bit of contact between those two.
keep it. Nope.
Has he held on to it? Oh, it's the snap. It's the snap. Let's see if we can go back and see what happened there, because I saw them closing on the Delta on the screen. So close here. What's going to happen? It's going to... I mean, that is... Ooh.
I think it's the blind spot a little bit. That's difficult because there was no room left at all.
It's a tough one to call. You're absolutely right, because that story, again, it's that classic, oh, the Porsche is really slow in a straight line. Oh, the new Ferrari is going to be super quick. It's going to be like a bullet, which it probably is. Add a draft into it, like the Porsche punch for the air, it's going to be slower. It's like, I think it's one of them. Like, you're probably going to get to the point. You ask Rich what happened, he's going to say I didn't see him. I just went to take my line. Story's going to look at it and go, well, he pushed me out wide.
Yep.
Like, no one's going to know.
Yeah, racing incident again, because there are when you hit those drafts and you just get that extra speed boost, like it's so unpredictable what's about to happen, because especially in your rear view, you can't see that they have a draft and that they're just going to shoot by you.
Yeah,
you just can't see it.
It's very difficult to forecast, and like we said already, it doesn't matter how many times you use the radar or the crew chief or whatever it might be to kind of give you that heads up of what's around you. It's not perfect. Like, there is always going to be that level, that room for like interpretation where it says, oh yeah, you're clear, and then you look to your side and say, well, no, I can see like the front third of the guy's car, so I'm not clear.
Well, you run into the problem where, let's say he pokes his nose so you're not clear, and then he backs out, and then he pokes it again. That third or that second poke, she's still saying clear on the right and not yet saying on your right again. So you're just in one of those situations where you can't really listen to the electronic crew chiefs at all.
Yeah, it becomes very difficult indeed. You see difficulty increasing rather for Mark Raddenberry. He's got Andrea De Candia for company just in behind us. We've got 9 minutes left in this race. We'll go a quick roundup of what's happening in the standings at this moment in time. Carolus Yargulis is still leading the way, only to the tune of about half a second at the moment ahead of his Pulse Simsport teammate Miles Dixon. Matt Damon sits in P3 a couple of seconds further back, and then Marcus Hagel a little bit further adrift in P4. Martin Thorpe in P5. Rich Pixley and Thomas van der Stroys P6 and 7. Kirby is very much on the back of van der Stroys, about a second behind at the moment, and then Ivo van Collenberg and Jeremy Story, of course, caught up in that, coming together with Pixley a couple of laps ago. He is very much in the mix for the top 10 as well. We'll come back to this battle because Mark Raddenberry, I'm sure he won't mind saying this, is starting to formulate a little bit of a train behind him if for whatever better phrase. He's got DeCandia half a second. Karayanis has dropped back a little bit. He's actually under pressure a little bit. That you can see in the background from DePerna. But he's dropped back a little bit, hasn't he? He's how do you put it? Yeah, forming a bit of a Roddenberry train, shall we say?
He's either doing a fabulous job of defending, or well, I don't really think there's another option. We'll just call him the Alonso.
It reminds me. Was it Monaco, where I think he knew that no one could overtake him, and there's that picture of the track map, isn't there?
He knew the entire race, and it was just ridiculous. And I think knowing Fernando and the way that he like doesn't give any F's about anything, he's probably trying to prove a point. He's like, yeah, this track sucks for viewership. Watch.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, this is all I have to do. I don't have to really try, and I can still stop all of them coming past me. It is frustrating. Of course, we've got that in a couple of weeks' time, haven't we? So can't wait for that. Play with the very limp-wristed fist in a very lazy form of encouragement and happiness for that race, because it's going to be great.
That's one of the races that I typically don't watch. I'll just watch the highlights, and the highlights are pretty short typically.
Yeah, the blessing of the YouTube highlights from Formula One is the fact they are like 4 minutes long.
Yeah.
You know you're going to get at least a little bit going on. I actually watched back the Azerbaijan Grand Prix on Sunday because I was busy when it was on live, and I was just about to turn the highlights on. I saw someone on Twitter put a poll out, and it was like, what would you rate the Azerbaijan GP? And there were 4 options, and it was 1 out of 10, 1 out of 10, 1 out of 10, 1 out of 10. And I looked at it and I said to my other half, I was like, I'm going to watch the F1 highlights, but I'm not excited. She goes, why? It's like, look at this. She's like, oh, I see. Which was
yep, that was
it's an hour of my life I'm not going to get back, put it that way.
Yeah, right.
So we can see Miles Dixon
fight here.
Looking at the outside. I think that's Colin Dunn, and they've got ahead of them on tracks. That's a back marker they're going to have to contend with. Now, of course, the important thing to consider here, Chris, is the fact that these guys are teammates, despite the fact one of them is in the official Pole Sport livery. I'm assuming Justin, who does the designs for them, hasn't had the chance to get around to doing the Pole Sport Porsche just yet, which is fair enough. He's a very busy man, I know him well. But that's going to help Carolus in that respect, because obviously he was, till he changed to the new Porsche, of course, he was arguably one of the quickest, if not the quickest car on the grid, wasn't he? Because he was constantly putting in good lap times. And importantly, if we cast our minds back to the first couple of rounds, he was consistent as well. Like it does mean a lot. Like being quick is obviously important, clearly, but it's just as important, isn't it, to be consistent throughout, however long a race is. Whether it's a half an hour like this one, whether it's an hour like some of the ones we have, like it is really important at the end of the day.
Oh yeah, 100%. I typically do well in racing just through consistency. I am not by any means a fast driver. So like I said earlier, I normally just try to torture people in their mirrors because I can be super consistent on pretty much all of the corners, and then cross my fingers. So yeah, consistency is number 1 in my book for sim racing, without a doubt.
100%. As we can see, Rich Pixley under pressure once more. So Thomas van der Stroy's got right onto the back of him after he made that move a couple of laps ago. Through the last couple of corners, very wide from Pixley as they come on to the start-finish straight for what is going to be the 16th time. In fact, what's he doing? He's got... Oh, no.
He's got a drive-through. I think he got hit with it on that last corner there.
He did, and he's doing what I don't like people to do, and he's deciding to just can it in, I think. Looking at the fact, yes, he's dropped back.
Well, 4 minutes left.
Oh, no, he has carried on going. My apologies. I take it back. I immediately rescind my comment. Because he is carrying on, by the looks of it. Let's have a look and see. No, he's still putting the lap time in. I wonder if he was doing that because he knew he'd extended and was trying to avoid that being the case. Do you think?
Maybe, yeah. I mean, the computer doesn't take it back. Unfortunately, he got it pretty instantly on that wide turn there. But maybe he was just like, oh, I have a drive-through. I'm not in contention. These guys race.
That was the other thing I was thinking of. Like you say, it could just be a very smart play in the sense of, just saying something like, look, I'm not able to have this battle now. You see a Ferrari off in the background. That is, I don't know who that is, actually. It might be Martin de Groot, I believe, who's right the way back down the field. He's back down in P28. But yeah, I mean, it is a tough one. Like you say, it's a very good move in the end. Like, it's a very admirable thing to do, because if I was in that position, I wouldn't want to do it. I wouldn't want to get out of the way, because you know you're going to lose more time doing it. But it's quite a sensible decision from Rich just to drop out of the way, let these guys carry on, because they are battling at the higher end of the grid at the end of the day.
Yeah. You're not in there. You may as well just let them race. You're gonna drop way down the line anyways, because your drive through this close to the end, you're not really gonna get anything back. So you're out of it.
Yeah, exactly. As we've got about 2 laps left, I would think, as Miles Dixon is pushing Carolina Gullis out into the back part of the track as they go into the Curva Tramonto. As here he goes, gets up the inside. This is going to be interesting, because I haven't really seen a chance where these two have been next to each other to get any kind of outright understanding of top speed. Porsche is pulling away, though, a little bit.
Yeah, it is.
Now he's around the outside. Is he going to hold on to it? This is going to be really interesting to see who's going to hold on to it. Battle of the late breakers. Dixon up the inside. Bit of rubbing from the doors there. Into the final couple of corners. Goes around the outside, and Dixon, I think it looked to me there like it kind of looked like Jurgulis kind of turned in a bit and then didn't know he was there, but just kind of turned in and hit him a little bit, and that obviously kind of pushed him a bit further away out. So good move from Miles. He had to work for it, to be fair. Like, he got up the inside, of course, going onto the back straight, but still had to make the move at the end of the day, which sounds really stupid because obviously he has to make the move anyway. But you know what I mean? Like, he still had to work for it. That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, I like that when it comes to watching races. You know, I know you're the back marker, or you're not in contention, but you still need to make these guys race. Don't just give it to them. You know?
Yeah, absolutely. It's certainly something you've got to actually, like, you can't just expect to be gifted positions every single time. As I can see, Dario Zappa has retired from this race. He retired a few laps ago, so he is out of this one. He'll be looking to come back for race number 2. Still remains to be seen whether he will actually get his pole position back in that one. I think he will. But we'll have to wait and see.
I think you're right. They're probably going to treat it just like a simple disconnect. It might have been just a simple disconnect that wasn't actually related to rage quitting or anything. But in order to survive, he rage quit, came back in because he remembered he had a second race, or there was the restart, and we'll see if they get their positions back.
I mean, if you're going to go true Drive to Survive, you'll probably pick out something where there'll probably be some storyline made up that you wanted to go and nerf out the guy who hit him in the first place, something ridiculous like that. Just to clarify for everyone watching, that is not what Dario Zappa will do.
No.
I've actually spoken to him a few times. He's a lovely guy. That's not what he will do. So, line under that one. Let's immediately forget that has happened. Now, as we cross through the final corner of this lap, I don't think this is going to be the final lap. I was getting ready to finish it off. It's not going to be the final lap.
Nope.
Because Miles Dixon, it probably would have been had the gap for the top 3 now, Chris, been less than 2 seconds. Damon has pulled this back rather impressively. Like, he was, half a second quicker than these two on the last lap, despite the fact they weren't actually battling on the previous lap. So that's really impressive from Damon to put in his personal best on the second to last lap and give himself potentially the chance of a solid position finish, even better than he is at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, I like race until the end kind of racers. I don't want the people that kind of sit back on their heels and go, well, I've got 4th place, or I've got 3rd place, or whatever. I always want to see people pushing themselves. So I like the improvement late in the race like that.
Yeah, it's good to see. Less fuel in board, clearly proving that either he is very good in his tyres, or the tyre wear is not as aggressive as we implied it to be when the new patch came out. I think it was the new patch came out earlier today that might have impacted it. It might have been the one before. Not 100% sure. But lots to unpack in this one. Most of the big action was actually at the start, wasn't it? Of course, with the incident on the first of the 2 race starts. The beauty we have got, of course, the fact that we do have another race coming after this, so it's going to be a late one for me, because we're going to have a few minutes after this. But as they come through the final couple of corners, Miles Dixon rounds the final corner for the final time in race 1. He is going to cross the line and take the first win of the evening in the Pulse Sim Sport number 94 machine. Carolus Jurgulis follows him home in P2, and Matt Damon rounds out an all-new car podium grid here in race 1 here at Misano. Marcus Hagel comes through for 4th place, gains a few positions off of his starting grid spot. Martin Thorpe does the same. He comes through for P5. Thomas van der Stroys will come through just about for P6, with Aaron Kirby very much in his wing mirrors to round out this one. Eva van Collenberg has Story for company for P8 and P9, and Gianluca De Luca will round out the top 10. So we look further down the grid. It's an AM class victory for Nick Karayanis. He comes through in P18 overall, but will take the AM class victory for this one by, to be honest, Chris, an absolute country mile, about 30 seconds back to Rob Besser behind. That's an impressive. I mean, that's setting your stall out, isn't it? Really?
Yeah, that's a dominating victory right there. That's a big one.
That is very much an impressive result. Lovely first race for this one. We've got another race coming up in just a second, but hopefully, Chris, I say this with a lot of hope. I'm kind of hoping that we don't end up having a repeat of what's happened. Before we go anywhere, though, I just want to look at this because this is lovely to see. Look at all of these guys driving back. That is a Pulse Sim Sport 1, 2, 3 on the grid there. I mean, they didn't finish 1, 2, and 3, but I really like the fact that they've elected to do that. Sorry, I've just seen it as I've been going back through. And then a nice little pirouette
a little
at the
bit
end.
Of trickery.
Sorry, I figured it was appropriate that I'd show you that because I noticed it pop up on my other screen. I thought it'd be nice for everyone to see a little bit of tomfoolery at the end of that race. I'm all for it, especially when it looks like that. It's always good fun to watch. So now we press the waiting game and wait for what's going to happen. Let's have a look. I'm just actually having a look. Yeah, so there was red flag race restart in at the start there. The rather amusing comment from Mark Randenbury in the chat there saying, "Drive better, please." After the first race,
drive better, please. Yeah, there was a little bit of drama going on. So the interesting thing is, you and I are polarized on how we feel that should have been handled, whether it should have been restart like it was, or it should have just been let to affect the first race. I think that it should have been left to affect the first race because it makes for an interesting point standings thing. And also, I guess I have a little bit of, empathy for the people in the back that got an advantage from that situation. So, when you're in the back and you drive in the back and you have a little bit of fun just being on the grid in general. But something like that happens and you're like, wow, I'm in the top 10 now. It's really exciting for you as one of the lower level finishers. So getting that restart as someone who would have probably been put in that situation if I was able to get through that first incident, I could definitely see that I would be a little bit disappointed in the restart. Like, oh, come on, guys. Why didn't you just give me a chance? Are you on the side of the people in the front of the grid or something? What's going on? Don't play favorites kind of a thing. But, coming from an admin side, I definitely can see why. It was so early in the race that you didn't want the race to just kick off that way. And I kind of get that. But again, I'm still in the world of, we're in the sim racing world. There was no risk to any driver other than a bit of egos. I think we should have let it go.
I mean, egos, as we know, are the most precious part of a sim racer's fibre of being. So we do need to be very careful with them, to be fair. Fresh off the press exclusive for you, Dario Zappa starts in 33rd at the back of the grid. So does not retain his pole position, interestingly. I'm surprised that's happened, to be honest. I feel like that... I don't know. I feel like that is a strange one.
Yeah, I'm kind of curious at how ACC, the video game, or the servers are handling. So was it a situation where, because there's really two different situations that this could have been. It could have been just a random disconnect, game crashed, internet crashed, whatever it may be. We've all experienced it before. It just cuts out, he's gone, right? Or it could have been the hit pause, hit leave server, actually exit the game, and then think better of it and turn it all back on and come back in. Those are two very different scenarios that show, they show human beings a very different situation. They may not show a computer a different situation in that case, but it's interesting that he does not get his place back because honestly, I expected him to retain his pole position. I really did.
I figured they would. I'm 100% with you on it. Like, I feel like, I mean, we've all seen it. Like when you race at ACC, you get to the end of a session and you see all of these times at the bottom, or you see all these names rather at the bottom of the timing tower, and they're names of people who have not actually taken part. Maybe they've jumped into a public lobby and they've disappeared again, for example. They're still logged in there. Therefore, Zappa's pole position time would have stood. Where, yeah, I mean, obviously, look, we can't speak to him now. He could be anywhere. I don't know where he is. In another Discord server, probably having a chat with someone. But we can't say, like, you're absolutely right. We can't tell everyone what he's done to get into that position.
Right.
But it feels like it was logged. It should be considered, and it should probably put him on pole. But ultimately, it hasn't. So it's I mean, look, he's lost points obviously because he's had the car change. So he's gone from the 488 GT3, the Ferrari, to the new Ferrari. So he's lost points coming to this one anyway. This could have been a perfect opportunity for him to gain a lot of that back, especially when the likes of Iogulis, of course, have done the same thing as well. So it feels, I'm not going to say it feels harsh on him, because ultimately he was out of position at the start. He did, I'm going to throw it out there, be a little bit aggressive going into the first corner, and I understand why. He's trying to defend the position that he's now lost. I get it.
Mm-hmm.
But could you argue, and I wonder if the stewards might say that, of course, we are supposedly unbiased, and apparently not stewards, although I feel like we do turn this into a stewards conversation throughout every race.
Yeah, we do the stewarding and then go, but we're not the stewards. So
we apply a decision and then very quickly rescind it by suggesting that we're not allowed to give that decision. But you know what I mean? Like, he's forced it, and I think the stewards will look at that on him. I've got to be honest, like, I can't see it being any other way, because the helicam footage clearly shows him essentially kind of diving into the corner to almost maintain that second place, because he got jumped by the two Ferraris. So or the Porsche and the Ferrari, sorry. So you could potentially, if you wanted to go so far, you could potentially say he's at fault for the entire collision, but we all know that's definitely not the case. Like, there's obviously way more to it than that. But
right.
It's
it's difficult because, you know, rage quitting because something happened in a race is something that does happen. It happens to the best of us. I've done it at times, not necessarily in sim racing. I don't think I've ever done it in sim racing, but in like Call of Duty or the myriad of other video games that I've played, of course I have. Yeah. At some point you're like, this doesn't matter. I'm out of here. Like, whatever.
Oh god, yeah. We all have, yeah.
So it's a normal thing to have those emotions and then, you know, think better of it and come back again. Like, evidence right now, without ever talking to him, of course, it seems like that could be the case. But, you know, and if it is a rage quitting situation, I think you do definitely need to lose your place. If it's not, and it's a disconnect on accident, computers happen, then I don't think you do deserve to lose your place. So it's an interesting thing there that there's two different worlds of thought. And one is, if he did it on purpose, boot him down to the end. If he did not do it on purpose, keep him where he was.
Yeah. I mean, maybe it did. Maybe that's already in place and we don't know about it. Neither of us have driven the 1.9 update. Maybe they put it in. We just haven't seen the patch notes. Anyway, we could talk about that for hours. Let's hope we get a much cleaner first couple of corners for this one. As we go into the final race of the evening here. It's race number 2 here at the Misano circuit in Italy. As we go underway with green here for the final race of the round 4 here. Iogulis gets a fantastic start. Gets into the first couple of corners in the lead. Is he going to hold on to it as they go through the first couple of years? Matt Damon manages to hold on to second place as well. It looks like largely, it seems like we've gotten through there mostly cleanly. Couple of little bits of concertina effect, I would say there a little bit, Chris, but largely, yeah, pretty good.
Looks like they followed Mr. Bossman's instructions for the first 2 turns. Oh, there we go. Okay. There's a little kiss.
Cool. Okay. Moving on.
This time, we didn't have a car perpendicular across the track after a turn, so at least we had minimal effect of the rest of the grid. More contact. 3 different pieces there.
That was almost exactly what you were talking about before, Chris, where it's that one where it's the classic I didn't see him, but I genuinely don't think they saw him, because Pixley braked late, went deep, you could see that. Hagel's then gone, little gap up the inside. Damon's come back across, come into it. Like, it's so difficult to avoid. that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Like, it's just impossible, isn't it? But that
Yeah,
ultimately,
so
yeah.
what's that Senna quote? If there is a gap and you don't go for it, you're no longer a rate. Well, I don't know. That was definitely just net code of some sort.
What happened there?
No one was around him, and he just got punted. There's no way. No contact up front.
There was no sound. There was no suggestion of contact, which is really strange.
Yeah, he just got punted by the internet gods there.
Yeah, that was
Good grief.
really, really odd. Dario Zappa already up into P20 now. You can see on the timing tower on the left-hand side. So 1 lap down, 13 positions gained for the number 990 car, which is pretty impressive. It has to be said. We have lost one person. I can't quite see who it is. Is it Matt Damon, actually? Nope, he's dropped down. He's not left though, so no, not him. Can't quite see who it is. That's the difficulty. It's a blessing and a curse of having such a big grid, isn't it? You can't tell who's gone.
Right. So here's a question. We were just talking about that rage quit situation, penalizing Zappa for if he happened to have that situation. If the netcode punts you off the track like we just saw, that is 100% I'm out of here, right? Like,
Yeah.
like there's no way you're continuing that race, right? Like
It's one of those where I won't say it for the sake of the stream, but it's almost like like this, drop the controls and just walk away, isn't it?
You just go whatever. You don't even turn off the game. You just get up from your sim rig and walk off.
Yeah, it's the one that makes great YouTube content. Is ultimately what it is.
Yeah, that was some of the worst, just random punting I've ever seen. And I'm an iRacer, so you know that was bad.
And I mean that was some of.
little kiss.
Oh no,
Double,
triple! Oh, he's got,
Oh.
and then he's got the smacker on the lips from Zappa for good measure as well. Nicolo Pagnamenta. I was just about to talk about the fact that none of those 3 cars went through that right-hander at the back end of the back straight in the right way. None of them kept it on the track, but I mean.
I'm just thinking about Mark's message in the server. Prosper boss man, drive better.
Drive
and everyone's
better,
like,
please.
Nah, we're good.
Nah. Now, one thing I have noticed, I'm really sad, and I really hope this is going to change over the next 26 minutes, but can you see the rain that's 30 minutes away?
Just do a console command, change the timer to 15 minutes away.
If I had the server settings and I could do it from here, honestly, I would. If it was possible. It probably isn't. I don't know how to set up servers at ACC.
Mark's over there. Oh, you guys want to drive terribly? Here, rain.
Yeah, unfortunately, I don't think you could just apply rain immediately, but I'd love it if you could. I'm just desperately hoping. I've only seen that in the last 2 minutes. So whether that was there from the start or whether it might come in before the end, what I want is ideally is really for it to go to the 10-minute time now. So then it rains within the next 10 minutes, and then there's a decision for the guys to make as to whether they change tyres or not. That's what I'm after.
Yeah, we want the most chaos that you can possibly have on the track. I don't know. Watching or listening has noticed that. But yeah, we like a little bit of craziness. And the rain tends to do that for us.
Exactly. I'm all for carnage.
Today, netcode apparently just punts people off the track, so I guess we have that.
That was up there, one of the weirdest things I've seen. Like, there was no reason why he should have lost the car where he did.
No, there was gaps front and back. There was not really any input oddities that I saw. It did look like the input paused for a minute, which could be netcode related as well. But then just that sharp turn to the left and then just kick him off the track was really weird. I've never seen something like that in ACC.
Yeah, very, very strange. I'm not entirely sure what happened to him. We'll have a chat with him in the Discord after the race to see if we can unpack what happened next. I'm really intrigued just to get it from his perspective as much as anything else. So we've seen Mark Raddenbury facing the wrong way. We'll see if we can get a replay of this one. I wonder what's happened here. He looks like he's in a relatively good space coming out of the first couple of corners. Is he going to lose this? Oh, you see, that's one car going. Oh, he's lost it on his own. Marcus.
So the aftermath of the other crash was what we were seeing in the background. Mark just lost it.
Yeah, he had nothing. He had no relevance to that whatsoever.
He's like, "There's a crash behind me. I want to join."
Yeah, he's seen it in the background and gone, "Yep, I'll have a piece of that."
You know what that is, though. I feel his pain because he saw the wreck happen in his rear view, missed his brake point or turn point or whatever a little bit, overcompensated, and then spun the car around.
It's so easy to do.
Yeah, very, very simple.
What is it my dad says to me? He says, look at where you're going, not where you've been.
Yeah, that's a very, very, very good advice, especially in racing. Yeah,
it's a good proverb. It's because I used to like when I was younger, I used to drive on like all the old school driving games. I just tested them as a kid, and I used to sit and get him to watch, and I would look through my rearview mirror to see what's behind me. And every time I did it, didn't matter. Like every single time, I swear, like never missed one. He always say it.
Out.
Yeah. And he'd always say, "Yeah, focus on where you're going, not where you've been." It works. Don't do it anymore. I actually have a habit of just ignoring my rearview mirror, which can be a good thing and a bad thing, depending on what position you're in.
Oh, yeah. I've been there, too, where you're, like, so laser-focused on lines and brake points and turn-ins that all of a sudden you hear a car to your left, and you're like, where did you come from? What happened?
Yeah,
Didn't even see you coming in my rear view, and you're like, wait, I looked at my rear view in, like, 10 laps. What am I talking about?
At the risk of enlightening everyone who watches this stream for when they race against me, I don't look at my rearview mirror, so if someone sends it on me, I've got no idea.
Yeah. Well,
I'm completely
they can't
clueless.
torture your mirrors either, so I wouldn't be very efficient behind you because you'd be like, there.
This is very true. I've clearly found out a way of stopping you from ever overtaking me, Chris, which is always a nice thing.
Well, there we go.
Now, the rain in 30 minutes is getting worse. That was one line of rain before, it's now two, which indicates more rain, of course. The classic UI descriptive of more rain, please. Annoyingly, though, it's still 30 minutes away.
Yeah, so it's more intense, but it hasn't moved any closer.
Yeah, which you never know. Like, look, there's still time, as we see Gianluca De Luca holding off Gasolina, who it still really makes me chuckle that he's elected to pick the number one for his car for the season. I do love the confidence, I really do.
Hey, sometimes if you believe it, it becomes true, right?
Manifest destiny and all that.
Yeah.
You're not wrong.
Hear his name without hearing that song. By the way.
Oh God, yeah, 100%. I'm so sorry. If that was me, which it probably was, I can only apologise. I can't not hear it either.
Yeah, you said that once, and now every single time it just instantly pops.
I've heard that and thought about a song without even thinking of him since I've seen that name.
You know how like old classic songs that like people never knew the lyrics to, they just like made up their own lyrics to the lines and just accept that as the words? Now, when I hear that song, I will only hear his name. That's it.
It's a very easy change to make as well. Like, you could, in theory, sing it to people and people would be like, oh yeah, that's how it goes.
They wouldn't even notice.
No, exactly. It's quite a nice thing to do. But it's no, I'm with you. I can't not see it either. It's
if drivers had like wrestler style intros, he would have to use that, right? That would.
I tell you what,
to be the thing.
I feel like you've just nailed a massive broadcasting opportunity. It's ultimately going to take way too long for us to build that into these streams, because doing that for 35 drivers and having a full like grid walk, whatever you're going to call it, for each of them, like it'll be the end of the race by the time we've got to like P20. But I love the idea.
Just little cuts, just cut away to all the driver intros every once in a while. That'd be funny.
Sounds like a great idea to me, to be fair. Rich Pixley sitting in P5. We should probably talk a little bit of the race, shouldn't we? Yeah. Or maybe not, I don't know. But Rich Pixley sitting P5 at the moment. Ash Coupland and Jeremy Story in behind him in the two Ferraris. Aaron Kirby is one of those who has retired. I've seen him pop up in the chat on the Discord to say that he is no longer he's messaged, so that tells me he's no longer in the race. Probably the easiest way to explain it. We've lost a couple so far. I can't unfortunately tell you exactly who we've lost because I can only see they've gone. I can just see the numbers disappearing. But Rich Pixley holding fire in fifth at the moment. Coupland and Story trying to make some sort of inroads on him. Coupland, it's good to see Chris having a much better race than he did in the first one, of course. And I think here's one of them, like, Ash is very much impacted by that sort of thing happening. Like, he won't mind me saying. So I'm glad that he's having a much better race this time, because that's the kind of thing that can get really, really frustrating, can't it?
Yeah, I think we all are as sim racers affected by those things because, like we were talking about, we dedicate so much time to perfecting so that we can go and put a showing out on this virtual racetrack that we're doing every week or every other week, whatever it may be. So if you don't have another chance, so let's say this week was another 60-minuter and you don't have a chance to like recoup yourself, all you're going to do is you're just going to stew
Yeah.
until the next race. And that has the potential to, just like anyone who's ever been a member of competitive sports, having one bad game, race, whatever it may be, does have the ability to like stick with you and just you're in a slump for a couple of them after a while. This giving Ash that nice reset, okay, you're doing okay. Now you can kind of forget about what happened in that last one because of this one. It's a fabulous thing to be able to just write off that bad experience and move on.
Yeah, absolutely. Another driver, unfortunately, looks like they've retired, is Dario Zappa as well. So no points for him in this one, from what I can see. As we look a bit further back, Steve Derrick in the Pro GT car, trying, I'd say, to hold off Andrea De Perna in the EOS car, the number 40. Well, he's the number 101 car, but it's the Valentino Rossi livery, isn't it? So it's applied his 46 on there anyway. He's got the inside lines to go onto the back straight now. This is very much a drag race. Now, I know that the BMW is going to be quicker off the line, and it looks to me, Chris, like Steve's just kind of cutting his losses a little bit there, to be fair, because he didn't look like he maybe did a proper job in terms of stopping that move from happening once the BMW got alongside.
Yeah, there's an interesting thing there that would go through my mind personally, because you do see the BMW just edging in view, and you're like, do I want to fight this, or do I want to have a clean next turn? So do I tuck back in, try to keep some of that draft alive for the next couple straights and just tuck in and take my turn the way I want to? Or do I fight this and potentially like ruin the whole thing? You know?
It's a tough one, especially when you've got this kind of race where, like, yes, they're fighting in the chat, they're in the same class and things like that, but if you think about it, like, yeah, there's still more than half this race to go. So
yeah,
there's
a
every
lot of
possibility
time for him to regain, or a mistake happens, or there's a lot of racing left, so there's plenty of time for something to happen.
Exactly, plenty of time for things to change. What hasn't changed is the order in the top three. So since the start of this one, it's been Carol Gillis from Miles Dixon, from Marcus Hagel, the top three. Hagel, interestingly, not on the pace of the front two like he normally would be. So he's benefiting from the fact that these guys have obviously lost the points because they've changed the car, but he's not on the same pace, it seems. I don't know whether that's just a Misano thing, but I'm looking at the best laps, for example. He's half a second slower than both of them on their best laps of the race, and he was a tenth or two off on the last tour. So it's not clearly not working out properly. I mean, I say not working out, he's third. Like, it's not a bad thing, but you know what I mean? Like,
That's pretty good, yeah.
Yeah, still not bad, but it's not working out as you might expect from Marcus Hagel so far this evening.
So I wonder, with the new update and the new cars and things like that, I wonder how long it's going to be until they kind of even out in competition, because it definitely feels like if you have the right driver, it distinct advantage on pace. I'm just curious how long that's going to stick around.
Yeah,
One of the most frustrating things about like a Call of Duty, like if you play Warzone or something, and they start to release new weapons, you're like, I don't want to use this weapon, or in AC's case, I don't want to use this car, but there's a distinct advantage to using it.
Mm-hmm.
Do I switch over to it? Do I need to, in order to stay competitive? Because, you know, especially if you're one of the better drivers, and you're like, I have the pace. I know I have the pace for this. But for some reason, I can't catch these guys in these new cars.
Yeah.
That starts to toy with you a little bit emotionally, and you're like, okay, maybe it is the car. Maybe I am limited by the tools that I'm using right now. Maybe I need to switch to that new thing.
It is a very tough balance. Like, I'm one, like, I know where in the order I would typically kind of fall in based on my pace around relevant like track stuff. So you're right. I think I'd look at it, and Ash made the point earlier, didn't he? He was talking about his pace in the Aston Martin as opposed to what it is in the Ferrari. Like, he's already gained a second a lap by
and that's
being in the Ferrari.
That's just not how it should technically be. if you think about it realistically, right?
No.
You shouldn't gain a whole second by switching to another car.
Yeah,
really.
don't get me wrong. Like, there's always an argument that you gain a little bit of time because obviously it's a brand new car and obviously a brand new
Yeah.
model and everything like that. There's always like you bring out a new model because it's going to be faster. Don't you? Like you're not going to bring out something that ultimately you'd like to
Yeah,
think you won't. But
like-
you're not going to bring out something slower, are you?
Right. It's kind of like in the world of cameras or phones or anything. Like, if they were to bring something out that's worse than the past one, then no one would want it.
Yeah.
So you have to always be better.
Exactly.
Well, we live in the world of sim racing as well, because if you get a direct drive wheel, you're going to be faster than if you have a Logitech, right? Isn't that how all of this works? If you have a load cell brake pedal, you're faster than if you have just the elastometers.
I'm trying to figure out whether you are being serious or you're trying to vindicate the amount of money you spent.
Well, what I'm trying to suggest at this point is, we as sim racers naturally gravitate towards, okay, well, changing equipment or car or changing our situation will make us faster in a way. So that would mess with our minds more, seeing these two new cars be up front. And you're like, I know I have the pace for this. Why can't I catch them?
I think,
Like, well, it's got to be the car.
I think for me with the equipment I personally think makes you quicker. I think it makes you more consistent.
Yeah.
One thing
it
that
does.
What's happened here? Ash Cooperman wide. What's happened here? Is there contact going into the final couple of corners? It looks like he's got past Pixley here. Oh, and that looks like a bit of a nudge. That looks like a nudge.
Wait, was that a nudge though? Because at that angle, it looked like a nudge, but the distance ahead that he was made it seem off.
So I can see there's contact. Let's have a look back from the rear wing of Cooper's car here. This isn't going to be the best idea, but that's definitely
Whoa,
contact.
Yeah, that's definitely okay.
That's a coming together.
That was a weird acceleration though. That was like movie style acceleration. You know how they switch down to a lower gear,
Yeah,
stamp it onto the ground, and all of a sudden they're ahead of the person they're next to.
the Fast and the Furious move. Yeah.
Yeah. Fast. I don't know if you guys have noticed. I used to be a huge fan of Fast and the Furious when they were like, I almost said realistic, but when they were the old versions of them. But yeah, that was a weird acceleration. That who was behind him?
It was Pixley, who I was about to mention,
Yeah.
has done the right thing. It's nice to see him actually continuing to be behind him, so he's not driven off into the sunset. He's actually carried on. He's held the position and let Ash come back through, which is always what we like to see.
Yeah, we definitely like to see that. That didn't seem like a draft. That didn't seem like, it wasn't a spot where Ash would have braked that hard quite yet. That was a weird situation there.
Very, very strange indeed. Like I say, though, nice to see some sportsmanship in play because Pixley has decided to give that position back as
Oh no!
just pan on it. Now, this is worrying. This might mean... Has he gotten away with it? Sorry, I got across there. Oh, he has got the drive-through.
Drive-through. Yeah,
I was
that
just
a-
about to say, I've seen this happen before. I think it happened at the last time we were at Misano for the GT Championship, where if you essentially obviously he's not purposefully cut that corner. Like, he's had it coming together. He's lost the back end. There's literally nothing he can do to stop that happening. But he's got a drive-through as a result. I actually watched someone get disqualified for that. That's what I was waiting for. I was waiting for the camera to just immediately pan back to the pit lane. Luckily, that didn't happen. But it's tough because, again, I suppose it comes back to the debate we've had already about a rage quit versus a disconnect. Like, how does it track it? Like,
Yeah.
then you track the contact,
has
doesn't
like,
it?
the computer has a hard number. It's like, okay, it detected the contact, of course, but then it like forgot about the contact, and it was like, oh, you cut this corner, you cut this corner, you did that. Okay, drive through, or in the worst case, DQ. But yeah, it just it can't make any human-like decision on that situation. Like a steward, if they were watching that, would be like, oh, yeah, that's not a drive-through.
It's clear, exactly. It's clearly not, but maybe it's dependent on position gain. I'm not entirely sure.
Right.
Who knows? But we go into the final 10 minutes. Rain's due in 10 minutes. It's sake.
It'll start raining when they cross the finish line, so it won't have any. Unless all of a sudden it starts to be like my neck of the woods, and the weather reports completely have no idea what they're talking about, and then it downpours.
I mean,
couple 10 minutes here.
I don't think that's mutually exclusive to your neck of the woods. To be fair, Chris, I think it happens to everyone. I don't think anyone's weather report is truly accurate these days. But you're right. I mean, look,
reporters, yeah,
wind coming
job.
in. Yeah, wind coming in
The
at
only job where
7K.
you could be wrong 100% of the time and keep your job.
Exactly. But no, wind 7 kilometers an hour. So like that's enough potentially to bring that weather in a little bit quicker. You might hope. So we'll have to wait and see. Like I'm basically watching this with my eyes on stalks to see whether any rain does appear. I'm very keen to see it. Fortunately, I don't feel like it's going to come early enough to make a massive difference.
It would be very interesting, because we have tire degradation now. No one can stop to go get wets in the pit, right? So you're at the point where you just like deal with it, and you're on ice skates the entire time. That could be kind of crazy for the end.
Very cold tires, understeering like crazy. It's a tough one. Like it's a very difficult balance, and I was thinking about whether I would ask you to kind of give an idea as to what time frame you would like. What would be your kind of minimum time left to pit? But it's not that simple, is it? It's not a how long's left. It's a how long's left. How much rain's on the track? How wet is it? Like how am I getting on in the current conditions? Like there's so many variables to consider. Like,
yeah, and it's an active decision where you can only make the decision when you're coming around to the pit entry, right? But you have to be thinking about it every lap, every turn. You're like, okay, is this going to get worse? Can I handle this? Is it going to just punt me off randomly just because it's right on the edge of what I can handle? You know, there's many play at this point in the race if it just started to downpour.
Yeah, there's just like you said, there's just too many variables. It's one of them. It's one of them where the likes of the post sim sport guys, where I might be wrong in assuming this, but I'm assuming they've got some sort of like race engineer. Maybe not for every single race they do, but I'm sure they will for like a lot of like the pro official series that they do. Oh, there's a bit of contact there between Karayanis and Richards. It looked like Richards was going into a gap that was always going to be closing, unfortunately. But yeah,
a little sportsmanship there too,
exactly.
with the just waiting for him to get back on track. That was nice.
It's nice to see. So what was I going to say? Yeah, so it's like when you've got an engineer, especially in that position. I've actually seen there's a really interesting one. I think it was on YouTube. I think James Baldwin did a race with George Boothby and a couple of the other guys, like for the Yassi. So I think it's Yassi. I think they raced for a while ago, and they did a race at Spa, and that kind of thing happened, and it showed you how important someone else is in that situation, because obviously, like similar to the way you and I can see, like we can see all of the timing data for everyone else, and they obviously can as well. So that is as big a dictator as to whether you pit as anything else is, isn't it? Because you can ultimately see, like, oh, John over there has gone on to wets. Oh, John's 2 seconds quicker a lap. Like, we should probably pit.
We need to go to wets. Yeah. Oh, what happened there? I saw a little bit of a tail end loss, but it didn't seem like it was that drastic.
Yeah, I'm not sure if he lost it under braking, did Karayanis there, or whether he just decided to give the move. It ultimately doesn't. It ultimately matters very little to Nick's race, because he is, as he was in the first race, he is leading the AM class. In this one, he's got 7 seconds back to Colin Dunn, who's a couple of positions back, and they got James Fletcher in between them. So it doesn't massively make a difference. It might have just been one of them where, I know it's like the example you'd give in maybe kind of more mainstream is the Lando Norris, isn't it? Where he does that thing all the time where if he knows he's in a different race, he will never hold someone up, because obviously it's impacting him as much as it is someone else. Ultimately.
Oh yeah. When you're racing around other people, no matter if they're in your class in a multi-class or not, or if they're lapping you, it doesn't matter the situation. If you're driving around another driver, it changes your race 100%.
Yeah, and it also is worth noting that that he has actually gotten back past Mike Richards. Sorry, I was trying to remember what I said there, and I saw something that threw me off. Mike Richards has actually dropped back down into P15, so that position has changed again for some reason. I don't know why, but it has. There we go.
Not a lot happening. We had a lot of contact and a bunch of great sportsmanship in this race, which is obviously nice to see. We only have a couple laps left here, so.
I was going to say, what we got?
Still
4 minutes left.
rain.
Yeah, still waiting for the rain. What? Oh,
Here we go.
The Perner, I think it is, coming out of the pit lane. Goodness me. think it's... Oh, no, sorry. It's Alessandro De Candia. My apologies. In the 79 Aston Martin coming out the pit lane. But that was close. Because that was one of them. See, if we cast our back to Suzuka, of course, we had the incident between Rob Besant and the leaders, didn't we? Where Rob got out of the way very late coming out of the hairpin at the end of the lap and ultimately changed the winner of the race.
Yeah, that was an interesting one. If you didn't catch that one, definitely go back.
Absolutely
Exciting.
Yeah, I'm looking at it, Chris. The rain is going to be horrible in 10 minutes time, not in 3 minutes though.
Yeah, that's unfortunately we won't see any of that hard rain, but it would be one of those situations as if you were on a live track, you're just staring at the ominous clouds off in the distance, like, when is this going to happen?
Yeah, you're watching that infamous radar that they have, where it's all kind of color coded, aren't they? See what happens as Matt Damon nips into the chat. Terrible race 2 for me, unfortunately. It was a shame, mate. Lovely race 1, of course, at the podium, but yeah, not the best race 2 in the end for you. I think you got caught up in a couple of instances towards the start of the race, didn't you? So it's a shame to see. I do believe I have been keeping an eye on the chat throughout in Discord, I shall say, and I think there is going to be a statement going out tomorrow to really kind of just pick up on it, because I think you and I'll agree, Chris, like obviously overwhelmingly the racing that we see when we do these broadcasts is really, really good.
Yeah.
Tonight, that has not been the case, is it, realistically?
Yeah, we had one of these last season. I think we were at Spa, where it was a little bit of an iffy race the entire time. That one was
the rain came down. Yeah, I was going to say.
Yeah, that one was a little different because there were weather conditions contributed to the overall race. But yeah, every once in a while, the Prosper Boss Man has to virtually slap everyone's wrist and be like, "What are you doing?" And I think this will be one of those races.
Yeah, it's understandable. Like I say, we're not here to. Ultimately, we don't want to broadcast races that are messy. It's not.
Well,
doesn't make
maybe
good
you
content.
should have a week of Wreckfest just to get everyone,
yeah,
get all of it out of everyone's system.
Give everyone the opportunity to to de-stress and yeah.
Turn off penalties on a server and just let them go at it.
Just let them go absolutely mad. Turn damage off and all that sort of stuff. Just let them absolutely nerf each other. That'd be great fun. We are going to get, I'm pretty sure we're going to get exactly the same amount of time in this race that we did last time, because they are going to have 2 more laps because they crossed the line before it hit 134, which is largely what we're doing.
You know, good point in the chat there. I think you said it was Matt Damon Tubes in the YouTube name. It says, to be frank, they did just have an update. Maybe that has something to do with it. Maybe there were more changes in the update than they actually published, or maybe I know how development can be a domino effect at times, so maybe it did have different effects than what they anticipated them being. So that is a good shout. It might have something to do with it, because there was just today. So
yeah, exactly, like you say, there's, especially when they come out so soon after a major update like we had, like it does have an impact on it. So it's worth considering. There it is that rain? It's raining. There
we go.
It's very late in the day, but it is raining.
30 seconds left, but we got the rain.
We're gonna get what, a lap and a half of rain by that logic. Will anyone pit? That is the question.
No one's pitting at this point.
You'd be ridiculous to pit now, wouldn't you?
It would be a meme pit if you were to do it at this point, to put on wets. But
it does look. I tell you what, it looks like Jorgulis is struggling.
Yeah, that back end of that Porsche was fishtailing a little bit there, so that might actually have an impact. It obviously slows him down into. Oh,
he's look at him. He's slowed down to finish the race. There it is going to be. That we're not going to see another. Oh no, we are. We are going to see another one. Oh no, they have.
Oh, they're going to get in trouble.
Oh, goodness me. I mean, look at that. The track's already greasy. That has changed so quickly. Slippery. But anyway, Jorgulis does in the end take the win, only by 4 tenths of a second at the end to Miles Dixon. Marcus Hagel comes through in P3. Jeremy Story P4 in the end. Great result for him. Martin Thorpe comes through in P5. Ash Coupland in P6. So fantastic result for him in that second race. Much better than he had in the first. Rich Pixley in P7. Gianluca De Luca crosses the line in P8. Peter Phillips comes down in P9. Ollie Geel comes through in P10. Sebastian Erdmann in P11. And I'm looking at this, Chris. Everyone down between Steve Derrick now and Bren Jones has still got to finish the race on essentially quite a damp track at this point.
Yeah,
It's one of them where you kind of you almost wanted to be really close behind the leader at that stage, because it's going to be tough. Like, look at him sideways through there.
There he goes.
Oh!
Little drift action. Nice showmanship. Thank you for that.
Knows he's on the camera, does Brennan. He's going to show.
Yeah,
he's going
like,
to show off for the viewers.
Show off a little bit here. Matt Damon actually makes another really good point. Change balance of power on a lot of cars, and then change the tire graining. So I think that would probably have a lot to do with it, because it is a new system with the tires. So they're tweaking and adjusting and changing things all over, and that would have a massive effect on the drivability of pretty much every car in the entire game. So it's not just the new cars, or it's not just the cars that they noted in the patch notes. It's every car across the entire game.
Yeah, exactly. There's a lot to. There's 100%. I think the main thing is there's a lot to take in with these updates happening, and ultimately, no one's going to get the one. Say no one. Not everyone, I should say, is going to get the chance to fully test, prepare, practice, etc., for every eventuality that you're going to get. So there's always going to be that kind of edge case, I guess you'd call it, where, like I say, a car gets nerfed, a car gets bopped. Like, there's been, I think I did see a little bit of chat going around where there's been some nerfs on the Ferrari, for example, the new 296. So things like that are going to impact people, and like you say, you might expect one to be quicker and then it'd be really slow. So it's a lot to take into account.
It's one of those situations, just like in real motorsport, where they're changing the car's physics and the way they handle, but they don't necessarily make the perfect decision every time. It takes a couple iterations to make it what we want it to be. So in the early life of these cars, they're probably going to be a little bit unpredictable if you really think about it, where it's like, okay, they changed it too much. Now it doesn't feel like the same car. Now they changed it back, and now it feels like that car again, but I got used to the other way.
Yeah.
So it's this constant battle that you have to go through in the video game world, if you will.
Yeah, exactly. It's I think there's a lot to consider. Ultimately, this is what happens, and whether that was what caused some of the incidents tonight, whether it was just general kind of lack of practice, whatever it might be, who knows? Like, it's impossible to assume. But either way, generally speaking, we've had two relatively decent rounds worth of racing. I think you and I'll agree. Like, obviously, look, we would have liked it to be a little bit cleaner. It's probably the fairest way to put it.
As commentators, it does make it a little bit more interesting for things to talk about. So as a commentator, it's not terrible. But yeah, we do want to see clean racing. Sim racing, I touched on this a couple times. It's interesting because it is different inherently than normal race, like IRL, real life racing, because there's not a risk of injury. There's not a risk of anybody getting hurt. So having incidents in the sim racing world is actually, I don't know, I'd go out on a limb and say it might be a little bit okay sometimes.
Less at stake for sure.
Yeah.
Definitely less at stake. Well, look, we bring another round to a close. Round 4 is in the books. Misano behind us now. We head to round 5 in 2 weeks' time, which is at Zandvoort, Chris. A tight and twisty track. Overtaking gonna be difficult. I mean, we might potentially see as much as we've seen this evening in terms of incidents. Hopefully we don't, but it's going to be an interesting one to see how we get on with 35, 40 cars zipping around the small little Dutch circuit in a couple of weeks' time.
Yeah, that I struggle with that track, so I'm very excited to see what these drivers do on there. Not that I can mimic what they're going to be doing out on the track with their track times, but you know, it's going to be a good one. I think we'll have the pause per boss man Mark yell at the drivers a little bit, see if they come out next time being a little bit more careful, and hopefully have an amazing race again.
Absolutely. Well, in the meantime, thank you to those of you who've stuck around and watched this for this evening. Whether you're watching this live, whether you're watching it back, your presence is appreciated nonetheless. My name's been David Ressel. I've been joined alongside this evening by Mr. Chris Honourable himself. So, Chris, thank you for joining us as well. It's been a fantastic evening spent with you as always. And we'll be back in a couple of weeks' time for round number 5 at Zandvoort, as we've just mentioned. So, between now and then, have a lovely time. We'll speak to you and see you guys all again very soon. Have a lovely rest of your evening, whether you are. Thank you and goodbye.
I do. Sometimes I sing